All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to call the City Council August 24 work session to order. Bonnie, we are all present. Thank you very much. We have a very exciting Pledge of Allegiance, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our participants. These are all of our Art Tucker guests. So we have Patty Young, who's the founder and past president. Right? Is that correct? Come on up. Sue Stein, Art Tucker board member. Kelly Rollocks, art teacher at Berkmar Middle School. She was our contest director. Did you see the lovely artwork that was in the hallway as you came in? That was wonderful. And you were a Toddy last year. I'm a former Toddy too from Stone Mountain Middle. Yeah. Felicia Jones from Berkmar Middle, principal. Thank you. Patty Keller was the Art Tucker contest sponsor. Oliver Weaver, where are you? You are our Art Tucker student contest winner. You can see his artwork out there. Brittany Ranu is the art teacher at Tucker Middle. Excellent. Thank you for being here. And Dr. Jean Romaine is a retired educator. You're coming up. She's not here. She's in the car with a 1-year-old. Uh-oh, she probably would rather be in here. So we're going to have you all lead us for the pledge. And then afterwards, there's going to be a presentation and then we'll come down and do some photos. All right. You ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And just to let you all know, last spring, Art Tucker hosted a student art competition showcasing incredible creativity and talent of our local students. As we said, City Hall, we're displaying that. We used to do that a lot, and we're going to get back to that. So remember that. Send us your artwork. Art Tucker is dedicated to showcasing Georgia artists and makers while growing a vibrant, inclusive, art-loving community right here in Tucker. So we thank you for being here tonight. And I don't know if you guys want to go ahead. We've got the microphones turned so you can go ahead and do the presentation.
To present this award to our first place winner, Oliver Weaver. Congratulations, Oliver.
And Oliver is the son of Councilwoman Weaver. Mrs. Weaver. So we're going to come down and get some photos too. We had to get closer. You had to go all the way to the back of the room. All right, now we have public comment. Our rules of decorum come from Robert's Rules of Order. Our meetings are held in accordance with Georgia's Open Meetings Act. We will call up those that signed up to speak and then open it up to those in the room. If you signed up by mistake thinking we were taking attendance, you can feel free to say pass when your name is called. You will each have 2 minutes to speak, but keep in mind that neither council nor I can respond during that time, and our total public comment is 20 minutes. Bonnie? Nobody signed up. Well, is there anybody who would like to speak? All right, forever hold your peace. That's it for public comment. All right, mayor's opening remarks. Just a reminder that our ADA transition strategic plan, the survey is open until August 31st. It can be found, I'm just going to say on our website because I'm not going to read that whole web page, or check out our posts on social media. We've got a lot of upcoming events. You thought the summer of fun was over, but it's not. The last First Friday concert is with Foozer. Foozer. That's a combination tribute band of Weezer and Foo Fighters. Be quite something. It's going to be September 4th at the Tuckertown Green, and details can be found at tuckerga.gov/summer. Doggy pool party, Kelly Cofer Park pool. Register ahead of time for Monday, September 7th, with time slots from 3:30 to 6. Check the event calendar on our website for details and a link to register. And we're going to continue music throughout the fall. We've got our Sunday showcases coming back. We teased that a little bit in the spring and tested it out, and it was very, very popular. This is going to be featuring Stranger Company, September 13th at noon. When I got the calendar hold this morning, I thought, what the heck is Stranger Company? Like, what company's coming into Tucker? But it's a concert, so I'm super excited about that as well. And I just really want to give a shout out to our Parks and Recreation staff and our Parks and Recreation director for all the hard work. You guys have been making it an amazing summer for all of our folks. So next up, we're going to, approval of the agenda. We got to approve this agenda. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? All right, very good, it passes. Now we've got a presentation from the DeKalb County School District. We're going to have an update. And I know Dr. Sauce is here and some of his team members. And I wanted to give you guys a quick little update. I know we talk, but not everybody knows what we've been doing with the schools. So back in January, February, March, we started the Mayor's Reading Club. And I have a gift for Dr. Sauce. It's called the Dog Poop Initiative.
Oh,
And this was our first book that we read with the elementary schools. And so we talk about being a scooper. Don't be a pointer or a pooper. And that's what we were reading with our elementary schools. And so I have a gift for you. We'll get it to you. We'll get it to you right before you leave. Come on up. And then I'm going to preview our next book. Thank you to Sonia Shufsky, our communications director, and Lindsay Burrell, who lives in Tucker. We're going to read Polly the Brave Pufferfish. That's going to be our next book coming up in the schools. And then we've been doing work with, here you go, with Tucker Middle School with the STEM students. So many of us have been over there. Many of our staff have been over there. They're going to work with us on the trail system. And we're doing a lot of environmental education work with them. But they're also, this morning, I had the pleasure of being there. They wanted to know in Tucker how a bill becomes a law. So they had studied the state. And I let them know that sometimes I hold my breath when the state makes a bill become a law, because then we have ramifications that we have to clean up at the local level. But we had a good time this morning. We appreciate that partnership with them, and that will continue as well. And then the high school level, I see Dr. Parker is here, Tucker High School principal. Thank you so much for being here. We're starting a youth council, and so applications are open now. And it's sophomores through seniors at any high school. And I know that your student government president has been working with some of us and has reached out and is sharing that information. So it's very exciting to see all of our partnerships. And I know you all feel it too. We have the events and you walk down the street and the kids are running up to you. And it's important that our students know that their city loves them and values them. And they're just having a good old time, aren't they? They really are. So it's an exciting time for us to be partnering with you all. So we're excited to hear your updates for us.
thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you to the members of the City Council as well for the opportunity, for the hospitality. And I tell you, as we get started, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to take this. So the Dog Poop Initiative I'm just kidding. Is the gift that we receive. No, but appreciate the,
I know, no,
Uh-huh.
it's okay. The other day, I was saying something about you coming to speak, and I said, Dr. Sapp is coming.
Oh,
And I was like, oh,
that's what.
it's actually Dr.
See, that's
Sapp.
all Freudian slips. No, but thank you, Madam Mayor.
love you.
In all seriousness, for the gifts, for the invitation, for your hospitality, and for the opportunity to share some exciting updates related to our school district. As mentioned, my name is Norman Sauce, very proudly serving DeKalb County School District as interim superintendent. And as I share some updates from the school district, also want to introduce some other members of the team who are here this evening, and also we'll share some updates. But our Chief of Access and Opportunity, Dr. Trisilla Weaver, is here. Our Chief of Community Engagement and Innovative Partnerships, Dr. Sharice Campbell, is here. Our strategic advisor to the superintendent, who helps me with all things not on a job description, Ms. Stacy Stepney, is here. We also have our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Eric Hofstetter, is here, who I think is quite familiar to many on the team here at Tucker. We have our current sitting board chair, Mrs. Allison Gevertz, is here. Thank you, Ms. Gevertz, for coming. And also we have our board member-elect here, Ms. Tracy Brisson is here. Thank you for coming, Ms. Brisson. And of course, as was referenced, Dr. Parker is here. Thank you for coming, sir. And also Lieutenant McNair, who helps to keep me on time all the time, is here. Thank you, sir. So again, thanks for letting us share this evening. I'd like to give a few updates on the opening of school and also point to some North Stars that we've identified for the year. And as I conclude, and obviously we welcome questions at any point, as I conclude my portion of the presentation, I guess I should start my timer now, huh? There we go. Then I'm going to invite Dr. Campbell and Dr. Weaver to come share behind me, who also have some pertinent updates as it relates to the student assignment project work, which I know is, on a lot of folks' minds, rightfully so. So whenever we have an opportunity to speak, we always remind folks of our guiding principles, the 3 C's and the 3 R's. 3 C's represent clarity, consistency, and coherence. The 3 R's represent relationships, receptiveness, and responsiveness. And of course, when we talk about those 6 guiding principles, clarity means that we're doing all that we can to ensure families, employees, stakeholders, the board understand not only what decisions are being made, but also the rationale behind them, and that we're communicating through means that are digestible, discernible, and accessible to our stakeholders and meeting them where they are with their needs for discernment. Consistency means that we're always seeking to create stable and predictable systems so that expectations and support don't vary unnecessarily from one school or one department to another, essentially that we're rowing in the same direction, singing from the same hymnal of music. And coherence means that we're aligning our purpose, that our departments, our resources, our supports are all aligned around shared goals, shared understanding, rather than working in isolation. And we seek to accomplish those through relationships, receptiveness, and responsiveness. Relationships being the foundation of all that we do. Can't possibly have a personal relationship with each stakeholder, but treating our stakeholders like they matter as they do, and their experiences matter to us is critical for us to support them as best we can. Receptiveness means creating space to listen and hear from our stakeholders and understanding their experiences. And responsiveness means that we turn what we've learned into some meaningful action and not just asking just to say we asked. Okay? So that's kind of the anchors of our approach as it relates to the 3 C's and the 3 R's. You see here a visual that represents our connective tissue. And that image may be familiar, particularly to some educators in the room. That's Scarborough's reading rope, but we've also integrated that into our connective tissue for logistics, safety, community, academics, all coalescing in how we resource schools, how we make our decisions, and how we outfit schools to elevate conditions and experiences for them. Student excellence remains at the center. Our goal is to ensure that students achieve academically, that they're prepared for college, careers, and life. Our operational effectiveness focuses on strengthening systems and processes to improve efficiency, transparency, and accountability. And community partnerships allow us to bring additional perspectives, relationships, and resources to the work of supporting students. And this anchoring document, blueprint, if you will, speaks to some ways that we seek to do that, but wanted to make sure to put that at the forefront of the conversation. Lastly, you see at the bottom there of the visual, the goal areas in our strategic plan, which are student excellence, people and culture, operational effectiveness, community partnerships, sustainable futures. So moving on to some back to school highlights. So as we open the 2026-27 school year, our focus was on expanding student opportunities, strengthening school readiness, and helping families navigate the registration process. One important area of growth that we're really excited about this year is our new Aviation Career Pathways program. And I've spoken of this publicly in many spaces, but for awareness, the state of Georgia recognizes 17 different career readiness pathways. And aviation was the 17th that we had not yet been offering until this year. And as a district of our size, with the resources that we have and can bring to bear, of course, in the land of one of the great, truly great international airlines, Delta Airlines, and of course, the busiest airport in the world, Hartsfield-Jackson, we need to be offering the aviation pathway. And I'm really excited to share that this year is year one of us offering the aviation pathway. And so right now that consists of drone piloting, but it's also, as we cascade out beyond this year, it's also A&P license mechanics and also pilot license, pilot certification, not just drone piloting. We also begin this school year with 100% of our safety and security positions filled, which reinforces our commitment to safe and supportive learning environments. Our teams processed, get this, 15,744 online registrations, and we also facilitated registrations and transportation routing for 2,400 students with exceptional needs this summer. We operated 4 summer registration hubs this summer at Chamblee High School, Tucker Middle School, Columbia High School, and DeKalb Arts Academy. And together, those walk-in hubs yielded 557 different registrations for families walking in if they needed support with the online registration process. So we're very, very proud of that. Some other highlights referenced in this slide. Well, I talked about 100% safety and security personnel and talked about the high volume of registrations that we processed leading into the year. Okay, and on to the next slide. We had a really busy summer this summer in the way of renovations of various facilities across the district. I don't want to say the wrong number, Mr. Hofstetter. I think we had close to 100. We had close to 100 different facilities touched in some way this summer. It was a very, very high volume. Very happy to say that of all those projects that received some sort of renovation this summer, some major, some minor, and everything in between, we had our certificates of occupancy done, situated, signed, sealed, and delivered before the first day of school in each instance. So that's just in 54 days of work, right, Mr. Hofstetter? 56 calendar days. Nearly 100 projects, and we had every single one completed and certificate of occupancies in hand before the start of school. In addition to preparing our students and families for the start of school, as referenced, we used the summer months to make important improvements to our facilities. Throughout the summer, we completed construction and facility improvements across the Tucker cluster as well, including at Idlewood, Livesey, and Tucker High School, Idlewood Elementary, Livesey Elementary, and Tucker High School. These investments help prepare our schools for the new year and support safer, more functional, and more welcoming learning environments. And we're very, very happy that we got those projects complete and signed, sealed, and delivered before the start of school. Here we go. So a little bit about warm body counts and enrollment. So not only across the district, but also particular to the Tucker cluster, which the next couple slides speak to. So firstly, there were 78,439 students who actually showed up to school in week 1, and that rose to 79,729 students who showed up for school in week 2. It's not unusual that you have a difference between warm body counts showing up the first 2 weeks of school, and the number of students enrolled. So I don't want to confuse the public. Warm body count does not reference the enrollment. That referenced the number of enrolled students who actually showed up to school. And again, it's not unusual that there's some discrepancy between warm body and enrollment in the first 2 to 3 weeks of school. The year over gap, so I do want to make sure I reference the year-to-year gap. So that's 79,729. That's how many showed up by the end of week 2. That is a decrease of about 1,500 students, in fact, 1,531 for warm body counts from the prior year. So that's a 1.9% decline in warm body counts from the prior year. Grade level trends show mixed movement compared to last year. The most notable gains are reflected in grade 5, which is up 5% from the prior year in terms of warm body count. Pre-K 3 up 4.8% from the prior year in terms of warm body count. And grade 12 up 3.6%, while the largest declines were seen in grades 9, down 6.5%, kindergarten down 6.1%, grades 3 down 4.5%, grade 6 down 4.2%, grade 4 down 3.5%, and grade 2 down 3.1%. Again, these are warm body counts, not enrollment. By area, most of our areas are below last year's warm body counts. Elementary area 4, which is more the southern part of our county, showed the largest decline in 5%, followed by secondary area 2, which is our middle and high schools, predominantly south of 78, a 3.5% decline. Elementary area 3, which is more the center to the southern part of our county, down 3.3%. Area 1 elementary, which is the northern part of our county, down 2%. And elementary area 2, which is this part of the community, this part of the district in this area we are here, at 0.4%. Secondary area 1, which is our middle and high schools, predominantly north of 78, was up 6.6%. And specialty area, which is our theme charter magnet schools, was up 0.5% in warm body counts. As it relates to the Tucker cluster, so schools specific to those that feed into Tucker High School, you can see there's quite a bit of data on the screen here, some things that I'll point out as it relates to warm body count. The Tucker cluster's warm body count stood at 5,125 students by the end of day 10, which is actually an increase of 469 students from the year prior. So when you drill down into the data, into the Tucker cluster in particular, you see that there were actually more students who showed up for school this year in that cluster than was the case a year ago, to the tune of 469 students. So we certainly thought that was relevant to bring to this discussion. The school level data show that enrollment movement is not uniform across the cluster. Some schools showing increases, others showing modest declines. At the grade level, this dashboard highlights that several areas of concentration, including approximately 360 students in kindergarten, up 360 students, 372 students in second grade, and 449 students in eighth grade. The dashboard allows us to examine enrollment by school and grade so we can respond to shifts in student population and align staffing resources accordingly. So now going to enrollment, which again, not to confuse enrollment with warm body counts. These are students who are enrolled in Infinite Campus, completely registered, and may or may not have shown up to school, but they're actually enrolled. So when we look at the broader enrollment picture, the Tucker cluster is currently serving 5,476 enrolled students, which is up 76 enrolled students from the same point last year. So while the warm body counts were up over 400 students from a year prior, the enrolled students is up 76 students from a year prior. Hope that makes sense. The trend line also shows the typical rise in enrollment during the opening days of school, followed by a more stable pattern as student records and attendance are confirmed. So that's not unusual, very typical pattern, and you see that in the graph, not only the previous slide, but in this slide as well. Although individual schools within the cluster are experiencing different enrollment patterns, the overall Tucker cluster is above last year's enrollment, and that's an important fact to bring to bear in this space, certainly at this time. We'll continue monitoring school level differences because cluster growth does not necessarily occur evenly across schools or grades, or certainly across clusters. In fact, Tucker cluster is one of the few clusters that we have seen enrollment increases and warm body increases from the prior year, just to be frank and direct. So before I conclude here shortly, just want to speak to some goals for the year and some highlights for the year as we launch the new school year. So first, this is our newly launched 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 goals, and I want to unpack these for a moment. And so certainly if you're in schools, ask the principal, ask teachers. They should be able to know and speak about these. But our 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 goals are these. So first, the 6 represents 60%. So by 2030, we have a stated goal that at least 60% of our middle school scholars will have access to and complete at least one Carnegie unit course in middle school. So for the uninitiated, a Carnegie course is a high school credit-bearing course that students can take and complete in middle school, and students can take as many as 4 or 5 Carnegie unit courses, depending on which courses are offered at their middle school, the certification of the teachers in the middle school, et cetera, et cetera. So the goal is, but by 2030, at least 60% of our middle school scholars will have completed at least one Carnegie course. Just for awareness, this past year, that was about 22%. So we have some work to do, and hence this is by 2030. So just wanted to be direct about where we are as we aspire towards 2030, that we're about 22% this past year. The 7 represents 70%, and that's that 70% of our high school students by 2030 will complete at least one either advanced placement, interbaccalaureate, work-based learning, or dual enrollment course in their high school experience. And of course, IB is relevant in this cluster because of course we know that schools in the Tucker cluster, particularly Tucker Middle School, Tucker High School, offer the IB program. But we want to ensure that students have more opportunity to access those career readiness and college readiness courses. And so this past school year that we just concluded, it was about 44%. So again, this is district-wide, not speaking just to the Tucker cluster. So we have work to do, but we're going to continue to have that North Star in front of us as we seek to elevate conditions and experiences for each of our scholars. The 8 is 80%. So 80% of our grades 3 through 10, those are our tested grade levels. 80% of our grades 3 through 10 scholars by 2030 will read at grade level proficiency. We all understand that literacy, and going back to the wonderful gifts, thank you, Madam Mayor, and yours and other members of the City Council, reading to our children. I've said before publicly many times, reading is dignity. Reading is a basic human right. And there's no reason why at least 80% of our children shouldn't be reading at grade level. And we use that number for a reason. You know, teachers, former teachers in the room know that typically you would expect somewhere between 15 to 20% of your students needing some sort of additional supports to reach the Tier 1 curriculum, meaning at least 80% of your students should be able to access the Tier 1 curriculum, including grade level reading proficiency. And so the 2025 results, we haven't yet gotten the 2026 data from Georgia DOE, but the 2025 results, it was about 52% of our scholars in grades 3 through 10 were reading at grade level. So we've got some work to do, and we'll see where those numbers pan out as we get the 26 data back, probably in November. The 9 represents 90%, 90% graduation rate. There is no reason why we will not be 90% or bust from here on out. A year ago, that was 81.4%, excuse me. The 2026 data we haven't received back yet. We certainly have every reason to believe we're going to be above that 81.4%, but it's a little too early to say precisely what. Probably won't be at 90%, but from here on out, and we're not waiting until 2030, our goal is a 90% graduation rate or bust, and that's what that 9 represents. And then the 10 represents 100%, and that's our 4E plan, which stands for entrepreneurship, enlistment, enrollment, or employment. And that is a part of our post-secondary push plan that we've adopted in the last several years. And so that's our efforts to elevate awareness and educate our scholars on post-secondary opportunities, equip them with the understanding, the resources, the access to pursue those goals, particularly in the area of those 4 E's, enrollment, enlistment, entrepreneurship, or employment. Now, I'm happy to report that this past year, 100% of our graduates did have a completed 4E plan. And so as it relates to these goals, we're going to continue that 100% so that each of our graduates walk off stage with a diploma in one hand and a completed 4E plan in the other. And that's what that represents. So I wanted to speak to the 4E plans or to the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 goals. As I soon exit stage left here and invite my colleagues up to speak about our student assignment project work, we are especially excited about our work to elevate literacy. And I mentioned the goal a moment ago, to elevate literacy in DeKalb County. We're using the slogan, elevating literacy to launch lifelong learning. And I'm especially appreciative and proud of our Board of Education for working with us to adopt our first, or soon to adopt, we already passed on first read, our district's first ever literacy policy. And as a policy-making entity, you all can appreciate the critical need for policy to codify your commitments to your community. It's more than just talk. It's more than just alluding to something you'll do down the road. It's your codified, uniformed, understood commitments, which of course resources there follow and regulations follow, which we are on our way to soon adopting and completing our first ever literacy policy. Of course, comes with that regulation. So the literacy policy is the what, the regulation is the how. And so we do have corresponding regulation to accompany that policy. And then furthermore, we have our first ever full comprehensive unified literacy plan to accompany that policy and regulation, which we are adopting this year, which the state is requiring this year of school districts by January of 27. But guess what? We began working on this in January of 26. We are well out in front of the state's requirement in terms of the timeline when we have our unified literacy plan complete. And that is now for full implementation this year to accompany the literacy policy and regulations I spoke of. I also want to thank our Board of Education as it relates to this work in approving our plan for integrating into our budget this year the first time that we have ever had paraprofessionals in our kindergarten classrooms. Now, I want to be clear, this is a phased-in approach, and we're not yet at a place where every single kindergarten class has a paraprofessional. But this year, we've begun by allotting each elementary school at least one kindergarten paraprofessional for the administrative team and the kindergarten team to then decide how to rotate that paraprofessional into which class, when, and how. But our plan over the next 2 to 3 years is to phase in paraprofessionals in each kindergarten classroom, as many of our metro neighbors already have. So we're doing the same. And that also includes, as part of the state's budget and support for school districts, our hiring of literacy coaches this year for each of our elementary schools. That's also a process, but we've already hired 38 of the 78 positions are posted. We're still interviewing and hiring in real time. But we'll have soon literacy coaches in each of our elementary schools, and some of that comes with some state support as well. So those are some exciting, updates to begin the year, and also some data around enrollment and warm body counts and goals for the year that I definitely want to speak of. Madam Mayor, I'm not sure protocol. Might we pause there for anything about I spoke to, or should we just go right into our student assignment project work?
It's for questions
Okay.
on what you spoke to.
Okay. And then we'll
and then
transition from there into student assignment project work. Certainly.
Questions? Councilwoman?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I really appreciate you coming and
Certainly.
presenting the Tucker specific data. It definitely matches what I think we know.
Mhm.
Again, as we saw, my son is in 9th grade at Tucker High, and we are big champions of public school, and I've been champions of how important quality education and quality schools are to cities in terms of economic and community development. So I really appreciate having that data, and it's very exciting that again,
We're in
kids
Tucker after all.
kids at Lindsay, kids at Tucker Middle, kids at Tucker High, and I have seen the growth. So it's nice to see the numbers actually match that.
Certainly.
My oldest daughter has intellectual and developmental disabilities and is autistic. And unfortunately, we had to leave DeKalb County schools for a time period because her needs weren't being met, particularly around reading. So I'm curious if you could just speak to the literacy plan, which I think is wonderful, and how y'all are working specifically with special education children with IEPs. That is something that in the past has been a challenge for the district sometimes. And so I know there's a lot of parents out there of special needs kids that would like to understand how they're kind of being targeted and reached with that literacy plan.
So I appreciate that question very much. And thank you, Councilwoman, for your service and for your candor and for sharing about your family's experiences. Obviously, we want each child's needs to be able to be met in the DeKalb County School District. So sorry to hear that for your family that wasn't the case, and certainly hopefully down the road we may come back to that place. A couple of things I would offer, first of all, in the absence of a literacy policy, in the absence of a literacy plan, what we've encountered over time are kind of pockets of success and pockets of inconsistency in how we've approached literacy pedagogy, literacy training, resourcing our teachers, and supporting them to implement, the science of reading tenets and structured literacy in a coherent way. And to go back to the 3 C's, clarity, consistency, and coherence, this of course speaks to consistency and coherence in particular. And so, I would offer that, in my travels, not only in my prior roles with the district, but certainly now as interim superintendent, I've seen firsthand those pockets of success and the abundance of inconsistency. And these are very hardworking, well-intentioned teachers. So we're so appreciative of our teachers and all that they're overcoming to seek to give their best to each child in their classroom each moment of every day. And we haven't done the best to resource them and train them in consistent ways and monitor that what they need is what they're actually getting. And so that's where including for our children with special needs and also including for our multilingual learners, our gifted learners, not only our children in our general education settings, but each of those specialized settings as well. And so our literacy plan and our approach to literacy speaks to that. Without having it all, with all in front of me and not to belabor this conversation, we've recognized that there needs to be a place for students with unique needs and how they're being served, and that needs to be done in a consistent way through the development of our literacy plan, which we've garnered significant amounts of stakeholder input as we've sought to finalize that. I'll also offer this addendum as well. Part of this work includes, again, I want to acknowledge and thank our board. At our last board meeting on August 10th, our board approved an RFP for us to engage this year a special education program evaluation and master plan development so that we have a third party coming in to support us with a deep dive and objective third party look at how all of our special education services are being provided for, addressed, including how we're addressing the literacy needs of our students with disabilities, so that we can then come forward with a new district-wide master plan specific to serving our students with disabilities. So that work is happening or will be happening this year. And I would offer we did something similar 2 years ago as it relates to our English learners, and we've been lauded across the state for how we did that work with our English learners, and we know it's going to be the same with our students with disabilities. So hope that gives a little bit of context, and I appreciate, again, you sharing your personal experience.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And as that's being engaged, would love to be happy to be, key informant interview if helpful.
Certainly.
And then I have one last question, because I think my constituents would be upset if I didn't ask
Okay,
it.
sir.
I did ask it when Dr. Hofstadter was here in May. But to the kind of components around the operational effectiveness and efficiency, I continue, I don't know if my colleagues do, to hear from parents at the middle and high school about the challenges with the bus system and the consistency with which children are scheduled and arriving to school at the bell or later. I mentioned I have a high schooler. We're excited that we live within distance, that we don't have to do the bus this year because last year it was so challenging. That's our personal story. But there are a number of people across Tucker who have expressed this concern, have, I think, tried to reach out through multiple different avenues and not really still gotten a response. So mostly I would like to know who I can point people to when they come and ask a question so that they can feel like they get, a response. And it'd be great to know what y'all are doing strategically to fill the bus driver shortage. And
Certainly. So I'm going to invite Mr. Hofstadter to give a little bit of context, but as he does, thank you for that. And we, we understand that there are some persistent challenges as it relates to just our capacity of our drivers and our transportation workforce. Certainly our transportation employees work tremendously hard and give the best that they have so that we can get as many students to school on time and home as best we can. We do have some logistical challenges in that space that have nothing to do with their hard work and their intent. Want to invite Mr. Hofstadter to give a little more context, including appropriate contact, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me start with the context first. You can always reach me. I'm all over the website, so that's fine too. And I know you have my card. Again, Eric Hofstadter, Chief Operating Officer. Also, our Executive Director for Transportation is Mr. Raymond Stanley. He's also available. His number is also all over the website as well, as particularly under the transportation page. And they'll be happy to reach out. And I know they have been, because I have been too. We've been trying to answer as many emails as we can, particularly in the first couple of weeks of school, where things always run a little bit slower. So first, I want to say thank you for your patience in this. One of the issues that we did have in Tucker this year is right before school began. We had about, I think we had eight bus drivers resign right before school began, all within this Tucker area. It kind of hit Tucker and went out Lakeside. Why, we don't know. It just happened that way. So we started off just a few routes short. I am happy to say that we've got 21 drivers right now in training. and we hope to get those out as soon as we can. And they'll be starting to fill the ranks, obviously, where we have those vacancies. So hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll start putting more bus drivers on the road.
Wasn't because of our roundabouts coming, was it?
I hope not. I hope not. No, no, it's just, it's like everything else. It's just getting to be very challenging to recruit and retain bus drivers.
I think I definitely appreciate that. I think one thing that could possibly also help would be a more formal communication to parents about that situation. Because that's the other side of this, is that the app also consistently does not work. And so there's just, again, heard lots of times where parents don't know where their kids are. They're trying to follow the like disconnect to reconnect rules, but they don't have any way of contacting their children when they are, an hour to 2 hours, late getting home or late to school. So I think that's really, really helpful information if there's
Yeah.
any way that there could be, notification to.
Point
families.
taken. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback, Madam Councilwoman. Thank you.
Thank you. We want to move on to your
Certainly.
staff. All right.
Want to invite Dr. Weaver and Dr. Campbell, who I know have some updates related to student assignment project work. I think
Thank you, Dr. Soth.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Lerner and members of the City Council. Today, Dr. Campbell and I will provide an update regarding the student assignment project. And as we begin, please allow me to share our 3 commitments. First, community voice is essential. No recommendation will come before the DeKalb County Board of Education until impacted communities have had meaningful opportunities to participate. Second, we will have comprehensive conversations so our stakeholders understand how each decision affects student opportunities. And third, every cluster engagement session will be facilitated by an independent third-party facilitator. We are currently finalizing the vendor contract for our Phase 1 facilitation, and an RFP has been released to secure vendor support for the second phase. These commitments help us establish a foundation for trust throughout the process. The work of the Student Assignment Project is centered around the student experience. During first semester, our conversations will focus on the 6 clusters most impacted by construction and expansion projects, and they are Lakeside, Cross Keys, Chamblee, Tucker, Dunwoody, and Druid Hills. In second semester, the focus will shift to our 6 most under-enrolled clusters, which are Tucker, McNair, Cedar Grove, Miller Grove, Columbia, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. High School cluster. Community engagement is critical as an advisory voice in this process. We have reconvened our engagement opportunities, and it will start on the week of August the 31st. Throughout the engagement process, participants will have multiple opportunities to provide input, and that's through our community advisory teams, public comment sessions, online surveys, and our virtual focus group. The engagement process is intentionally designed to move from defining goals to considering options and finally refining recommendations. The focus on session 1 will be to define the goals as we look at our process and guiding documents and identify community considerations. The focus of session 2 will be to examine possibilities and discuss impact and provide feedback. And the focus of session 3 will be to review and revise possibilities and share final feedback for consideration and the recommendations. Throughout each engagement, both the interim superintendent and the board will receive updates regarding progress and emerging themes. This timeline is designed to support a recommendation to the Board of Education in November or December, or at a time the interim superintendent determines appropriate. It is important, again, to emphasize that information received from the many engagement opportunities will be for advisory purposes. This includes some information collected through our spring community engagement session. The ultimate recommendation lies with the interim superintendent, and the final recommendation lies with the Board of Education. Now let's talk a little bit about the Community Advisory Team, or the CATS. We will begin with our 6 community advisory team representing each focus clusters that are designed to evolve as options and considerations evolve. Each cluster school will receive 10 committee seats representing a diverse cross-section of stakeholders, including parents and guardians, students, parents, teachers, community members, including alumni, district staff, and parent organization. To ensure transparency and fairness, committee members will be selected through a random selection process managed with the support of our Research and Accountability Department. The random selection will be by category. So for each one of these categories is where the random selection will take place. Previous student assignment advisory committee members will submit their interest form. All of those who commit their interest form, they will be guaranteed a slot on those committees. At this time, there are 3 meetings planned for each community advisory team. Each meeting will have a specific focus that will previously mention that we talked about the guiding principles and so forth. And as a reminder, participation in the community advisory team is just one way to provide feedback in the process. Feedback can also be provided through surveys and public comments, and they can also gather more information through our online focus groups. I want to talk a little bit about the recruitment. The CAT recruitment process began on August 11th with the release of our online interest form. The interest form will remain open through August 25th. The random selection process for each category will begin on August 26th and 27th, and the CAT members will be notified on August 28th. And the CAT sessions are scheduled to begin September 8th through the 10th. Recruitment will be across multiple community channels, including our district social media, the district webpage, our Monday newsletter, municipal newsletters, and outreach from our family and community engagement team. Our goal is broad awareness so that every interested stakeholder has the opportunity to participate. And our stakeholders can engage through advisory teams, surveys, focus groups, and public comment sessions. We are intentionally trying to provide multiple entry points for participation. I will now turn the presentation over to Dr. Campbell, who will speak more about our community engagement opportunities and our communications plan.
Stakeholders will be able to engage through advisory teams, surveys, focus groups, and public comment sessions. We're intentionally providing multiple entries for participation. Our communication strategy is designed to achieve 2 primary goals. First, we want every stakeholder to understand why this work matters. By optimizing the use of our resources, we can improve the conditions, experiences, and outcomes for every DeKalb County School District student. This is one of the reasons it's important to transition to a community-based engagement model. Communities deserve to understand what potential changes may mean for their specific schools and their neighborhoods. Second, stakeholders need to understand how they can participate, not only to stay informed, but also to provide input on options and the potential impacts of any proposed changes. This is important because we know that schools are more than buildings. They represent the heartbeat of our communities, and they're places where some of the most valued stakeholders learn, grow, and thrive. We've learned that not everyone responds to an online survey or is able to attend an in-person town hall. To build shared understanding, we must meet people where they are. For some, that's online. For others, it may be a public comment session, in the carpool line, at a basketball game, or at a community resource fair. Regardless of the setting, we'll create opportunities for two-way dialogue that keeps stakeholders informed and provide meaningful opportunities to share their perspectives throughout a transparent process. We'll communicate what is known, what remains under consideration, how feedback is being used, and what comes next. Every communication channel serves a distinct purpose. Some create awareness, others build understanding, and others invite dialogue. Together, these channels create multiple pathways for families and community members to stay informed and engaged. Our goal is to move stakeholders from simple awareness to meaningful participation. Most importantly, we'll maintain continuous communication throughout the engagement process. We want stakeholders to understand what's happening, why it's happening, and how they can participate at every stage. We're committed to building a transparent, inclusive, and credible process. While everyone may not agree with the final outcome, every community member will have meaningful opportunities to be informed, heard, and included throughout this journey. Community members often receive information from people they already know and trust. Because of that, we cannot solely rely on district communications. Instead, we'll partner with trusted voices across our communities and distribute information through a broad network of community connectors, including principals, teachers, PTA, PTO, PAC leaders, parents, students, alumni, faith leaders, civic organizations, business leaders, municipal partners, and community-based organizations. Our outreach strategy focuses on both sharing information and gathering feedback in places where community members already are. This may include carpool arrival and dismissal, curriculum nights, athletic events, performances, community meetings, and other district events. Throughout the district, stakeholders will find QR codes and ambassadors who can connect them directly to the Community Advisory Team interest form, surveys, the project page, and frequently asked questions. Just as schools are more than buildings, our district is more than a collection of schools. We're a community united by a shared purpose, the success and well-being of our children and communities. By activating the power of our community connector ecosystem, we can ensure broader participation, deeper understanding, and more meaningful engagement. On August 11th, we launched the Community Advisory Team interest form, which will close tomorrow, August 25th. We're in the process of beginning our communications campaign, establishing engagement metrics and participation goals, conducting CAT onboarding and orientations, launching community meetings and surveys, monitoring participation and representation, providing regular updates to our board, and compiling community feedback and findings. These engagement metrics will help us determine whether participation reflects the diversity of the communities we serve and identify where additional outreach may be needed. As we conclude, we want to reiterate 3 important points. First, that no decisions have been made. Second, community input, engagement data, and stakeholder feedback will be collected, reviewed, and carefully considered before any recommendation is presented to the Board of Education. Third, we are committed to a transparent, inclusive, and credible process. We will ensure that every community has an opportunity to participate, ask questions, and have its voice heard. Thank you for your time and attention. We appreciate the opportunity to share our approach and look forward to partnering with our communities throughout this process. At this time, we welcome your questions.
We'll take questions in a minute. I just want to say thank you, and I want to make sure when you're gaining this feedback in public comment or meetings, it's going to be cluster specific. So if you have a meeting, and let's say it's about the Tucker cluster, will they be specific cluster style meetings held in our community, say at Tucker High, or those places that are accessible to where we are?
That's correct, but I'll let Dr. Weaver take it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. So each one of the schools in your feeder pattern, they will receive 10 slides, and their community advisory team meetings will be held in the community.
Great, and the public is welcome to attend those, correct?
Not the community advisory team meetings, but the public comment sections they are, and those too will be held in your community.
Excellent. Because
Yes.
there's some clusters that are a little louder than others, and I think our cluster felt like they were at some meetings. So we really appreciate you guys listening and hearing that from us and putting this effort forward. So we thank you for hearing that.
Yes, we receive that feedback from many groups. And so that's part of our selection process and making sure that we have value in every voice, not just the loudest voice.
Thank you. A good reminder for us too, right? Anybody? Questions related to SAP that was reported right now? Okay. Any questions related to SAP process? You know, the kids are paying attention. Today, a middle school student sent me, are they still talking about, you know, that thing where they're going to move us to different schools and it has letters? And I said, oh, SAP. He said, yeah, that thing. I said, well, I said, listen, because we're going to have a report tonight. I invited him to come to our meeting or listen to it online. So the kids are paying attention too, which I think is good.
And anytime you all can get the word out, we want to make sure as many of our stakeholders are involved in the process as possible.
And we'll be willing partners both from the city and I think individually as well and push that out.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. We appreciate the time
Thank
that
you.
you took to be here with us. And as you can tell, Tucker is a very concerned, willing partner, and we really value you, We value our partnership with you. You know, you're headquartered in the city of Tucker, even though you have a Stone Mountain zip code. So just remember that as well. And so we really want to thank you for the partnership, and we're here to serve and help make this a success.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. Board Member Gewurz, you don't even have to ask.
Before you close out, I just have to say, because you just really said it, y'all know how I feel because it was just in Tucker magazine, my sort of goodbye love letter to Tucker. I love Tucker, but this is exactly why, because you all have taken the initiative to bring this team with the expertise so that you can answer your constituents' questions, and you're committing to be involved. This is the Tucker way. This is why I love you all so much. Thank you for inviting everyone today. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your service, and we'll do something special for you. For the, yes, yes. We will. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Now, we're moving on to G2, Lawrenceville Highway Improvements Update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a follow-up to our Lawrenceville Highway study that was done last year. We call it the Lawrenceville Highway Access Management and Beautification Plan. That's a mouthful, so we shortened that to Revive L29. That was completed last year. So now the purpose of this picture here is to show you the existing configuration of the intersection. It is not to draw your attention to the billboard.
I was say, look at that billboard up there. Woo, who's that guy looming over downtown?
Where that came from.
We didn't love you. We wouldn't tease you. It is part of the beautification.
I'll just roll it. Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
Well, I wanted to have different hats and things on you for different holidays. You should like change, we'll change it up. We'll go up there with stickers or something.
Revive L29, just a quick reminder of that study. We recognize that there are issues on L29 comes from the state route 29. The purpose of the study was to create a safer, more connected, more attractive Lawrenceville Highway. As you know, it goes all the way from 285 through downtown Tucker, and then takes a left and continues all the way to Mountain Industrial. So our process, we had and we sort of combined some of these steps so we didn't have to double pay for everything, but this was kind of done along with the Transportation Trail Master Plan. It was the same consultant. So we had a stakeholder committee that had shared a lot of good ideas. We had representatives of businesses along the corridor and citizens and bicyclists and just a number of folks. We had public participation meetings that were well attended, online surveys, several presentations to City Council. And then we have a total budgeted, we have a carryover from last year and then also this year, total of $900,000 for to start implementation. Recommendations from the study included access management, like we said, and installing a raised median where we can instead of that center two-way turn lane that can be dangerous. Taking that opportunity to landscape it and just consolidate all those left turns and place median openings at strategic locations. Bike and ped, very important to fill gaps and create that connectivity. And there were several recommendations for pedestrian signalized crossings at selected points. Beautification. We like to take opportunities to do some gateway treatments, and we talked about median landscaping, pedestrian lighting, and so forth to really beautify that corridor. and then some intersection improvements, not necessarily for capacity, but for operations and safety. So those were the recommendations. And then this was a map that was included in the study, and it's kind of busy, but it shows the different treatments at various locations. Again, recommendations for medians and crossings and sidewalks and intersection improvements, et cetera. So that's kind of the all-inclusive map. And then they quantified all the improvements. And as with most studies, they had a whole list of projects that came out of it. For $20 million, you could implement the whole thing. So obviously, we don't have $20 million. Where do we start? What do we want to do first? So we're looking at the intersection of Main Street slash Idlewood Road. That's kind of a gateway to downtown. And the study identified a number of improvements, installing this green, potentially landscape median here to, again, improve access management along the corridor. They're showing a little area there, which you don't have a whole lot of room at this intersection, but take any opportunity we can to do some kind of gateway or landscaping. We really want to improve the pedestrian connectivity here. As you know, the South Fork Peachtree Greenway goes from this intersection down Lawrenceville Highway, down 4th Street, and then it goes off-road, parallel to the creek, all the way down to Peters Park. So council has identified, we really want to get that project going. The first phase would be here. So we start here at the intersection, the southeast intersection, and go down Lawrenceville Highway and 4th Street to Cowan Road. So the problem is when you get them here, it just kind of ends. So we want to make sure they have a safe crossing there. If we proceed with this intersection improvement, this checks a lot of the boxes, access management like we talked about, repairing and having better connectivity to our sidewalks and trails, pedestrian crossings. There's a potential to do something with the signalization there to make that safer. And of course, all of this comes with a caveat that it's a state route. So we've got to work with GDOT on this. And really, we haven't approached them in detail with some of this, but we just kind of wanted to get your input. And then some opportunities for beautification at the intersection. So one thing we're thinking about is, this is an intersection with brick pavers, or really it'd be stamped and dyed asphalt that really highlights the pedestrian crossing and provides some traffic calming. This happens to be at the Tennessee Aquarium, but and again, we haven't run this by GDOT, but this would be something I think would be ideal along with pedestrian signalization. And we thought about cost. This is just a total swag. It depends on what you want to do, how much beautification you want to do. So we put some numbers to that, but that's just a very, very rough idea. So if we're on board with this project, we can talk more about scope and writing a request for a proposal and get a consultant on board and go from there. Questions?
Ken, real quick, so we know this was part of the study. We've talked about focusing it in areas that are going to make a bigger impact, right? Checking all these different boxes, working with the trail, working with saying, hey, you're coming to a special place, you're coming towards Main Street, getting people to pay attention. What exactly are you looking for? It's a work session, so we don't take official votes, but what exactly are you looking for us tonight? Because there's a potential to do several different things there. You showed us some pictures. What's our path?
Yeah, just looking for a direction, the will of council. What do you want to do? $20 million, we want to start somewhere. Do you want to do pedestrian crossings at other locations? Do you want to start somewhere else with a median? Do you want to do an intersection improvement at Hugh Howell Road and Lawrenceville Highway? What do you want to do? This was just a
So I
recommendation.
believe our discussion was to concentrate in this area, knowing budget concerns and also maintenance. And I'm going to say it again for everybody here, whether it's parks, whether it's trails, whether it's roads, maintenance is key. And I don't want to build anything else until we can prove that we can maintain what we've done in a manner with higher standards than what we're seeing. And it doesn't go to our staff is amazing. Our public works does an amazing job. It comes down to dollars. And that's what it comes down to. So if we continue to build, this is what happened before we had public works. We were building. And it wasn't fair to DeKalb County, who was providing the public works maintenance portion, because we were building and going. And remember we said, it's pretty stupid that we keep doing this and we're relying on somebody else to take care of it for us afterwards, right? And we said, let's put it to the community for the public works vote. Community passed it 73, 75% and said, yes, please go do it. And I think we're falling into that trap where we're building, and we're not being very, and our financial director over there shaking his head, we've got to be serious about maintenance. I don't care if there's flowers and bushes and trees. We just got to plant grass and keep the grass cut, then that's what we do and it looks nice, right? And I know we're not Hilton Head and we're not other places. We want to be cost effective as well, but we've got to be able to have the budget to equip our staff. So right now we've said, let's take this plan. It's a large plan like many others, and let's focus here. I see head shaking. So then do you need something from us tonight to say we're focusing here? Do you need ideas of what we're thinking? Do you have ideas to present more officially from this portion of the project?
Yeah, just again, get your agreement that this is what you want our focus to be on this first initial project. And I've thrown out some ideas to put into a scope of services. If you have any other thoughts, we'll be glad to consider those.
So let me do the first little thumbs up, thumbs down. Remember, it's a work session, so we're not officially voting. I mean, this has already been budgeted. This is already in the plans. Are we good with moving forward with this? That we will focus on that intersection as part of that plan. I mean, you kind of already said we wanted to budget money for the plan, but not shifting it further down to do anything. We want to, if we're going to spend money on this part of this plan, we're in agreement that we want to focus in this area because of the trail, because of downtown and walkability there. Yes.
But I'll just say, I broadly do support this, but I do have some questions. Because getting back to cost and what would be the priority, I mean, there's some things here that kind of is a little bit like, I wouldn't say a red flag, but a concern. Like, if we're going to do a gateway there, is that additional cost in order to buy right away? And then we've got the Milton Chain case to think about. Or, there's just some things there. But broadly speaking, I do like the idea very much of getting, if our focus is South Fork, Peachtree Creek, having that path from Main Street to, so even if we started and more modestly, where we ensure that we have pedestrians who get across, like we've got either the brick painted concrete or pavers or whatever, just to kind of make sure that vehicles and pedestrians, everybody knows where they're supposed to go and they can get across safely to Main Street and that path along Lawrenceville Highway. I think that, to me, as far as this project would be a priority, is to focus on that, to make sure that we build that out to get down to 4th Street. My question is about that very thing as far as the path along Lawrenceville Highway to 4th Street. Is that going to be 10 feet? Is that the plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So 10 feet, so it'll be a side path? I
It will,
presume?
yeah.
Side path comes up to the intersection, and then it gets across to Main Street. I think for me, that is the priority, the number one priority, to connect those two. And then the other things, while great, if we're being thoughtful about maintenance and going over budget with this and some other things, we might want to make that a stage 2 or 3. But overall, I think that this is a great direction to go in.
And I think the budget's there for some of that beautification. I think Courtney, so this process, Ken, we would say, okay, go ahead. We want to make sure pedestrian safety is top of mind. It's important because we're encouraging people to use the trail, get across the street. Next steps would be design and looking at some of the beautification, because you also want people to feel like they're coming into a different place. So we're talking about the brick, stamped brick, perhaps. Right?
Absolutely.
You would bring us something to look at, because here's what I don't like. I don't like that this is very open-ended in this work session, right? So I thought we'd have a little bit more meat or something to talk about. I'm just going to throw that out there. So we know pedestrian crossing safety number 1. You would bring us something to look at. Maybe there's, I don't even know if it's a gateway sign, but you know what we do on Main Street? You've seen it at both ends. We just go ahead and hang banners on whatever's out there, right? Which is fine. But maybe we could have a nice sign where those professional banners could go, where it says Art Tucker this weekend or Summer of Fun concert this weekend, because we do it anyway, right? It's always like the goat path, we call it, like that's where you put a sidewalk, where you see people wear out the grass. You know, this is where we put pavers instead of plants when we see people cutting through from the town green because they don't want to walk a few extra feet to get down and around towards the stage. They just want to plow through the bushes. So we took the bushes out and we put some pavers in. That's the kind of design and planning, you know, we're talking about too. So did you want to speak to any of that? Ken, was that part of this? We could do some of the signage and things like that?
Yes, so we, in the plan, they identified a little corner there, but yeah, that'll be part of it. We'll take a look at it, see what we have room for. How big do you want it? Do you have to buy right of way and do that? It's going to make the cost go up, but we want to get what you want. We want directional signage, beautification, and that's, yeah, Courtney's area.
Yeah, banner support structure would be great there. We're actually working with TSW to design 2 of those for locations elsewhere. And that was going to be our next location, was at Main and La Vista and Main and Lawrenceville, because obviously we do see those banners get tacked up on utility poles, which works, but we can always enhance it. So I think it's a great opportunity to not only create the safety improvements, but also beautification and improve the gateway to downtown Tucker.
Councilwoman Schroeder?
So I was curious about the sidewalk, if you could go back maybe to the design for a second, just on that corner. I know that the Revive L29 plan that you're referencing talks about having signage there, maybe Gatewood's. And then I know that this is an important intersection, 4 corners, very walkable. And what I always think about is when I'm driving through there, seeing the middle school students come up and the high school students coming down Main Street, and how much I just wish that we could have a little bit more beautification, open area, safety on all 4 corners. I'm not sure that this budget allows for all that, but I would like us to think about how we can make that better for walkability. And so I think we're right on target for what we've talked about before. I do think that the banner signage is a great idea. It certainly would make it look better and more inviting. So, and we are in a place, because of the Tuckertown Green, to want to beautify this little section of Lawrenceville Highway. And I'm kind of excited about this opportunity. I know that it's a small budget for the first couple years, but we'll start working at other little things as we've all kind of talked about behind the scenes along Lawrenceville Highway that we can maybe organize around to make it look better. I think that almost everybody that I've talked to, mayor and council, are champions of doing the Revive L29 moving forward. And I think this is a good start. It's a good start. And with the trail, as we've all referenced, coming into play that we're really excited about, as well as the council, I think it makes sense to focus just here for right now. Now, if we were to win the lotto, then that would be different.
That's right. Or raise taxes.
So,
Can always pay for it
Yeah.
somehow.
so that corner though, can I just go back to that one question? That corner that you have circled
Yeah.
there, I guess I was a little confused. So we haven't designed it.
No.
So we could talk about all four corners, making it safer in some way. I'm just curious.
Yes, we definitely want to make it safer. You just don't have as many opportunities, especially here on the south side. We have buildings just right up to the road.
Right.
And just not much to work with there. There's a little bit of opportunity there. You've got gas station here with the ATM. It's just really, really tight. You can do whatever you want to. If you want to buy right of way and go to that expense, you could potentially expand that. But that's the one corner we thought we had a little bit of room to work with.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
And thank you for bringing up the students. The other day I was going to Matthews. I did a proclamation for somebody who's turning 100. And on my way there, it was like, they were like little ducklings, and it was about 12 Tucker Middle School students, and they were walking down from Tucker Middle, and I watched them. They were very good. They pushed the button, they looked around, they made sure they all got across, and then they used the pedestrian crossings downtown, and they were walking to the arcade as a group of students together. It was so great to see them out and about and doing that and just watching out for each other. It was really sweet. So I told them this morning when I saw them, I was like, I saw y'all. You were doing a great job. Thank you. They did a good job. Lucas is their new president, by the way. We've all met Lucas last year. So he was leading the pack. So it was nice. But I agree. I mean, that's a state highway, and crossing that state highway is a little, and eventually we need to talk about a safer crossing over the railroad.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, Councilwoman.
So I definitely appreciate this. I am curious, given that this was done sort of concurrently to the first draft of the Transportation and Trails Master Plan, but then the Trails and Transportation Master Plan was significantly revised, and 2 weeks ago we approved that. I think when this was originally presented, we were told it was more advisory, and we kind of weren't going to approve this in and of itself. So one, I'd like, as we talk about design, to reference back to the transportation plan. And specifically, I believe that our north-south connectivity study several years ago identified this as one of the most dangerous intersections in the city, which I think is, and not just for pedestrians and vehicles, but also for bicycles. And so I know that myself and Councilmember Nguyen in particular have talked quite a bit about how do we move towards the Vision Zero policy and adopting that. So I wanted to theoretically highlight that, for us philosophically, how we can approach that. I would like to see us take a little bit more of a comprehensive look. So if I'm looking at this graphic, I would like to see the trail that we just talked about on this image. And I'd like to see the cross section go all the way to where we are proposing that would be, so that we can have, again, a little bit more of a perspective of that. And I think this is a very good opportunity to think about how we can help move from just construction and engineering design into an actual marketing and communication and strategic messaging and design and concepts for us and the community to see what these might look like. So to your point about what are we reviewing and making suggestions of, having some perspectives that are street level perspectives that have you looking down Lawrenceville Highway where you can see the trailhead in the distance or the trail entrance would be really helpful for making a decision about what this looks like. I also would like to hear from our economic development director because this is downtown. And so we're only hearing from community development and engineering, but we're talking about things that are like a core part of our city that the DDA should have a voice in. And so before we make whatever the next big decision is, I feel like I'd like to see some more connection to our existing plans, including our economic development strategy and how we think about gateways. Because to me, this feels like I'm not opposed to spending and investing. I'm going to say spending, investing in this intersection. I think we should. I don't want to feel like it's piecemeal. And I feel like a little bit of this is like, oh, we can tag this here or we can tag this here. And I think, Mayor, to your point about maintenance, that's also where that comes in, which is like, oh, maybe we could do this. We have a whole plan we just adopted that has some recommendations about how we can approach this. And so I'd like us to at least start there, but also consider how do we move into, again, concepts that the community can understand, not construction plans.
I agree. John, are you taking notes on this with Ken? And you guys will all get back together and, talk through this. So it is, again, when it comes to us, there's a little bit more.
Ken, can you go back to your slide? Because I just think it would be helpful for us to see about the mechanics of the next steps, because I did think that originally what we discussed was much more of a $250,000 to $300,000 cost. So the next step is a further definition of the scope or a design RFP, or can you just flesh that out a little bit more about how you came up with those numbers? Because I think that's really what we're going to be looking at and where the council's going to be making decisions next.
So again, you can make those numbers whatever you want. The bare bones number that was shown in the L29 study was installing this median here and doing some brick pavers or whatever you want, maybe some signal improvements. So yeah, you could probably implement that for a few $100,000. If you want to do more, you want to do some more gateway stuff and landscaping, the sky's the limit. It could go up. So that's why there's a caveat on those numbers. If you want to go less money or you can even phase this if you want to. You want to only look at pedestrian improvements at the intersection, you can start with that. But yeah, I would suggest you kind of look at the ultimate solution here. What do you want to do? And you could certainly phase construction if that's what you want to do.
Mayor and Council, is that we'll look at this and we'll look at it holistically and contextualize it with the trails and the connection of the Tuckertown Green Park, with the importance of trails, obviously, as an economic development force. And we'll bring this all in together and then bring it back to you as we move forward with actually building something.
Thank you. And I saw Councilwoman Troche had her hand up.
Yeah, like kind of how I thought this discussion would go is kind of how it has. I thought this is similar to when we had all of our ideas about what our priorities were, and some of us said a rec center, and some of us said the North Lake Trail along La Vista, and then we realized certain things about that maybe weren't achievable in the timeline that we wanted the impact, and so then that's when we focused on South Fork Petrie Creek Trail. So I feel like it's like the whole, how do you eat the whole elephant one bite at a time things, like L29 is definitely a big fat elephant. So this seems like an achievable bite. It's like we picked a little bit of everything for this bite, except for it doesn't look like there's major traffic, like rerouting kinds of things. And so that's kind of where my question went, is because I feel like it's good because it's hitting an area that is already pedestrian heavy, but not pedestrian safe. So we can make improvements that way. It helps the kids, obviously, all for that. Right downtown, which is what we were told to do, even in the ULI TAP study, was make the center better and expand out from there. So that's good. I just wondered, to me, like the unknown seems to be GDOT. And
Mhm.
so this tentative plan, I understand you'll come back with something more detailed and
Sure.
Courtney has to look at all of her stuff and all that, but it doesn't look like it's so disruptive, like compared to like what we're having to deal with at Lawrenceville and Brockett. So what experience, how would they be a roadblock to this? No pun intended, actually.
Yeah, I mean, they can be difficult. And probably I should have had some of those conversations before talking to you, but will they allow the brick pavers? Will they allow um, the pedestrian signal improvements? Maybe they'll say, well, you don't have the pedestrian volume, so it's not warranted, or, they may put up some resistance or whatever, but we'll definitely have those conversations. Yeah.
This seems like a nice little test bed for what else we would do. 'Cause
Yeah.
some of the other segments along Lawrenceville seem a lot more heftier in terms of engineering and design and
That's right.
transportation. So this seems like a nice little test ground for us to get our feet wet with it.
Agreed.
We also need to remember going into those conversations is that we're advocating for our citizens and our community. So remembering that we need to remain a good partner, but we also need to push. Because I've seen them bend in some other areas and we've got good partnerships. We have somebody now on their board who lives in Tucker. And so we need to leverage all those things. But remember, when we go in, we're about Tucker. Most definitely. And it can be done. Okay, I'm going to take one more. Councilwoman Schroeder. and
Thank
then-
you.
Do you have something too? Because, okay.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming back to me. I think it's also just an important point to clarify, and maybe Courtney can speak to this. I do remember also that we are in the process of doing the downtown district master plan that will come up here in the next year. And this is not about rushing us because I know you're already busy doing 3 currently right now, but I just want to ask the question about how this could maybe relate, because this is part of the downtown district area. I want to make sure we're making the right decision, kind of the higher level vision where Councilmember Weaver was going. If you could just kind of share that with us real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So we could definitely integrate this with the downtown master plan update. I know the next step would be how do you connect this further north on Main Street, look at that railroad crossing. We want to look at the downtown arch that we talked about during the budget process, as well as the improvements to that alley between Ford's and Village Burger, as well as, architectural regulations, code regulations. So I think it would be a great opportunity to integrate the two.
And I think, as we've talked about as well, when we're a little bit more cohesive and comprehensive on these plans and budget season will be upon us once again very soon, it's going to the table to our partners, Main Street Tucker Alliance, our CIDs, and us kind of driving that train now and saying, here's some projects in downtown, would you like to partner with us type of thing. Same with parks. We'll talk about that with parks and everybody else too. So, all right. So John, we're good?
Yes.
Ken, we're good?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Very good. So let's move on to G3, Streetscape Standard Sidewalk Policy for City Projects Update, which will impact this and many other things.
Switch. We're in a tag team tonight.
You're going to tag team.
And-
And so let's start with the end in mind.
Okay. So the end, and that's slide 2.
What would you like? Okay, you're going to do, what would you like from us so we can pay attention and know what you want at the end of that?
It's different. G3. Yeah, you even have notes on my questions. That's what I'm calling your buffet.
Excellent.
You can pick and choose. It's that is not G3. Sidewalk and streetscape. Yep. Thank you. So following up on intersection improvements and streetscape, we want to talk about the code regulations that we currently have and how we might streamline those and get your direction on that, as well as the public policy for sidewalk projects within the city of Tucker. Click. Okay, so obviously sidewalks play a vital role in our community, and adding more sidewalks has always been a huge priority for the city. So again, we're asking for that guidance I just mentioned. Lots of things to consider in this conversation. It's not a, one click fix or everything falls into one. There are a lot of different aspects, but one is the cost of the projects, the constraints that make it harder to construct sidewalks, the demand for additional connectivity and walkability, ADA accessibility for people of all ages and abilities, proximity of sidewalks to the road, safety concerns, our famous grass strip and whether or not we have that and how is it maintained, and how it feels if you don't have a grass strip, the benefit of street trees, the benefits of pedestrian street lighting, the aesthetics of a full streetscape, and then of course, long-term maintenance needs and cost. So we're going to start with the code and the regulations, and then we'll talk a little bit about sidewalk construction by the city and a policy around that. And then we'll end with several questions that we want your answers on. So the regulations currently vary across all of our zoning districts. There are currently 10 sets of sidewalk streetscape combinations in the code, and those follow on the other slides. And then we also have our trail standards. So in total, we have 11 different sidewalk widths, landscape strip widths. And if you can imagine, if you put all those next to each other, it's going to be a little disjointed and lots of transitions and maybe not appear aesthetically pleasing or serve everyone equally. Additionally, I wanted to point out that the Tucker Tomorrow Comprehensive Plan does have a goal about improving transportation connections and recommends that in order to ensure cohesive design throughout the city, that we amend our zoning regulations to create more uniform sidewalk standards. So these are our downtown standards. We've got one standard for Main Street and First Avenue. We have another standard for Lawrenceville Highway, La Vista Road, and Fellowship Road, and then another standard for all other streets. And then in Northlake, we have one standard for La Vista Road, one standard for other NL1 and NL2 streets, and other standards for NL3 streets. And a lot of these are abut one another, right? We're going to talk about a slide later on where the city's doing a sidewalk project in Montreal. If you do it by code, it requires a 10 and a 6. So how are you going to transition that? And it's not even in the Trail Master Plan area. And then Lawrenceville Highway, it is all consistent. When we wrote that code, we kind of knew where this was heading. And so we went with one consistent standard throughout the Lawrenceville Highway special zoning districts. That makes it a little bit easier. And then we have all other zoning districts, which has even more options for your landscape strip and sidewalk. And of course, our new Transportation and Trail Master Plan, which calls for a 10-foot path everywhere where the trail is delineated on this map. So 11th standard on our trail plan. So we are proposing to streamline these standards through the text amendment process. This is just to get your initial feedback on what that text amendment may look like. It would then go through the formal process of Planning Commission and 2 reads before Mayor and City Council. But we want to codify the trail standard that was never codified from the first plan. We were able to get several developers to implement it, either through by right development or rezonings or special land use permit. We want to go ahead and codify that, and we recommend codifying that at a 15-foot streetscape, which is a 5-foot landscape strip at the curb, followed by a 10-foot paved trail. And this would apply to all properties that abut the proposed trail network in that Transportation and Trail Master Plan. And then we would also streamline the sidewalks where we'd really just have one standard. There is a caveat where a few places that are unique would be slightly different and reflect the conditions that are already in the field. But we're recommending that we go with a minimum 12-foot streetscape, which would include a 2-foot landscape strip at the curb, would be your grass strip that provides that distance from the road, makes people feel more safe, a 6-foot paved sidewalk, and then a 4-foot planted landscape strip furnishing zone behind the sidewalk. And then areas like Main Street, La Vista Road and Northlake, and parts of Northlake Parkway would still have that larger 10-foot standard because that's what's mostly there now. In places where there's not a wider sidewalk, like Northlake Parkway south of La Vista, we wouldn't require that except for where the Trail Master Plan is going. And then we would also have language in there that would allow some type of formal process, like an administrative variance, to reduce any of those standards when it's absolutely necessary. Then we just have some images. So these images show the full streetscape. Both of these were done by developers. So you see these are both in North Lake, so very wide sidewalks, pedestrian streetlights, which are those decorative features, and then street trees and other landscaping. So that is what the code intends to have built when you follow it exactly. These are sidewalk projects where we've been able to add important sidewalk connectivity within the city. But they don't include the other amenities such as pedestrian streetlights or street trees. So on the left, you have the 10-foot trail, but nothing else was added. And then on the right, you've got a 5-foot sidewalk with a grass strip, but no street trees or pedestrian streetlights. And I forgot about the reader bar, and you can't see all my text, so I apologize for that. And then these are just some other instances that we have in the community. So the one on the left is a sidewalk transition. This is right at Tucker Meridian, where the sidewalk goes from 10 feet to 4 feet. It's kind of hard to see in this picture, but it's a very dramatic transition. And then the one on the right is also in North Lake, where you have a great sidewalk and beautiful decorative pedestrian street lighting, but no shade trees. So when I was out there last week, it was very hot taking the picture. Ken?
Okay, so let's talk about, Courtney focuses a lot on development and the code and what we hold developers to. Let's talk about city sidewalk construction. So these are the maps in the trail transportation master plan, sidewalks, future sidewalks on the left and the trails on the right. You've seen all that. A couple of the fairly recently completed projects. This one is on Brockett Road. We were able to do a 5-foot sidewalk there with a 2-foot grass strip. Probably could have gone a little wider there if we wanted to. You see the utilities in this case are a little further back, so we probably could have gone a little wider there. The Hugh Howe Road Trail, this is phase 2. We've got the next phase under design. This is a case where we did a 5-foot grass strip with a 10-foot trail. There were some impediments here in terms of the topography. We had to build a wall there, which is expensive, but you might be able to see a power pole. Those poles are pretty far off the roadway. So we were able to do all that. They did have to relocate some fiber lines and some gas lines, and they did that behind that wall. So there were some utility conflicts, but we were able to hold to our standard on that one. These are the projects that are either most of them are already designed and in right of way or easement acquisition. Old Norcross Road, our favorite project. That one we went with a little bit narrower sidewalk just because of all the impacts on properties that the houses are close to the road. So we went with about 5 to 5.5 feet width on that design. Most of the other ones are all 6 feet design, except for the Brockett Road. I'll show you a picture of that in a little bit. We went to 5 feet there because of various constraints, drainage and utilities and right of way. But I've got a picture on that. So keep in mind, I'm not trying to dissuade you from anything. Y'all can do whatever you want. You can make whatever policy you want, but we just need to understand the impacts on wider sidewalk and wider landscaping, so forth. You have right-of-way impacts, utilities, either landscaping or existing trees. A lot of people have mailboxes or their subdivision monuments or fencing that are in the way, culverts, and cost is definitely a consideration. So I've got pictures of some of the examples. This is a sidewalk we did on Hugh Howe Road. This is south of the old Chick-fil-A, and you see there that we squeezed in behind the back of curve. We had like a 1-foot grass strip and did a 5-foot sidewalk in this case. and we were butting right up against the curb to the parking lot. If you say, well, we want a 5-foot beauty strip and a 8-foot sidewalk, we would have taken every one of those parking spaces out, and right-of-way acquisition probably would have killed that business. So we did what we could with the constraints that we had. Utilities, here's a case that I think we narrowed that grass strip to a foot so we can get that sidewalk in front of that pole. So that was a 5-foot sidewalk. If we strictly say we want this width, at least one of those poles would have to be removed. And poles, depending on what's on it, our franchise agreement with Georgia Power, they don't do that for free. They do that for cost. Some of these poles are $80,000 to over $100,000 to relocate a transmission pole. So that's something to consider. But what we did here was try to avoid that cost and go in front of that pole. This was what I call one of the legacy projects. We called this the Tucker Streetscape project when we became a city, and the county already had a project identified to install sidewalks on First Avenue and Second and Third Street. And they said, well, according to our plans here, I can't remember what it was, like a 3-foot grass strip and a 6-foot sidewalk. We're going to take those mature trees out. So we went down to a 1-foot grass strip and a 5-foot sidewalk there, and we still got in the root zone of those trees, but we were able to save those trees. Topographic constraints. A lot of times you're cutting into a slope or it's a fill slope, which means you have to it slopes down. You have to build a wall. This was one on Coolidge Road that we did. Built a 5-foot sidewalk with a 2-foot grass strip, and you see if we went any wider there, you could do it, but you're going to have to build a pretty significant wall. And in this case, those steps are leading up to a cemetery, so we're able to maintain access to that cemetery. You have physical constraints. This is a culvert on Elmdale Drive. We snuck in that sidewalk there in front of the abutment, and I think it narrows down to 4 feet there. But the alternative would have been to widen that out, expand that culvert, get Corps of Engineer permits, and pretty significant impact. So we worked within the constraints that we had. These are a couple of examples of projects under design. Brockett Road, again, we went with 5-foot sidewalk width on that, and we were able to save relocating a lot of poles. 2 poles were unavoidable. We've taken that agreement to you. It was $82,000 to relocate 2 poles. But just looking at the economics, we kind of worked with what we had and tried to limit right-of-way acquisition. Still, we have a dozen easements. We're in the process of acquiring on that one. And then Montreal Road, again, we went with the 6-foot sidewalk. Any wider than that, and you would have very significant utility relocation on that. So again, not trying to dissuade you, but just showing you what you're looking at.
Yeah, so obviously I'm here, there's the code. This is the code that we apply on developments. When Ken's projects come in for LDPs, we always look at it per the code. City has the ability to do different designs. We don't have to follow that code, but really wanting direction from you guys on what that policy should be. Should we follow the code? Should there be exceptions in certain situations? Should we prioritize sidewalk width over street trees? What's the most important to balance the actual infrastructure as well as the cost and constraints that we have to work within. So this is just an example of a developer versus a city project. The one on the left is where the 2 duplexes are going at Brockett and Comanche. They were required by code to put in a 6-foot sidewalk. This will also include decorative street lighting as well as street trees. The city will be doing a project that abuts it, and that project will be 4-foot and 5-foot width sidewalks. with no streetscape. And, being, again, this one's already under design. We're not really looking to redesign current projects. But maybe this is a location where pedestrian street lighting would be prioritized because it's in downtown. It's a major street in our downtown with a lot of walkability. So maybe that's where we prioritize additional enhancements there. But keeping in mind the cost, this could, if we followed the code fully, this might be the only sidewalk project we can do because it's so much more expensive if we follow our own code. So first, we wanted feedback on the proposed code amendments. So I wanted to see if council supports codifying that 15-foot streetscape for trails, which would be the 5-foot landscape strip at the curb and the 10-foot paved trail. We also wanted feedback on whether you support streamlining the other sidewalk standards in the code to mostly be a 12-foot streetscape, which is that 2-foot grass strip, 6-foot sidewalk, and 4-foot planted landscape strip. We could also just reduce that to 5 feet, which would be more in line with the projects that the city's already constructed and would help us also be able to more comply with code and work within existing constraints and not have so much variation. So those would be 2 options. And again, still allowing that special provision for sidewalks that are already larger in North Lake and downtown, and then still having that language for flexibility when needed. So we can stop there and get feedback on code before we go to the next slide, which is feedback on the sidewalk policy.
All right, we'll start in a minute. I like how you laid this out because really it is a difference of developers have larger pockets, so they can put in the lighting and they can put in the street furniture. So the design, the construction of it, but also they can maintain it better. Because if you drive around and you look at some of the projects we've done, when it is in the commercial space, they have somebody that cuts their grass for them. They have somebody that comes, not all of them, but I would say these larger redevelopment projects. So they maintain it and it looks really nice. And then we put it in front of somebody's house and it may be maintained and it may not be. This is why I hate those grass strips, because then sometimes we end up with like very tall weeds and we get into the whole thing of is it right away? Can we ask them to cut it? Can we? I know Ted's looking at me, our attorney's looking at me. So we get into this whole thing of, for some people, it's a burden, actually. I'm just going to say that, right? So for some people, taking care of that extra grass that we've put in front of them now, for some, it could be a burden. For others, not. And others maintain it well. So that's where I get into this whole thing of we task developers to do this and they can do it and they can take care of it very well for a long time. We start to do all of that and we have to rely on the homeowners and everywhere else where it is to help maintain that because we're 20 square miles. And so I'm just throwing that out there because I like the way it made us really think about the difference, right? It made us think about why in some places they can have the garbage cans and they can empty them and they have the furniture and the lighting and all of that. Whereas, like you said, we may only be able to do one sidewalk project a year if we had to meet all of those standards all of the time versus trying more connectivity and it might not be perfect. So it is a struggle. So the first thing we're going to talk about is feedback on sidewalk policy for city projects. So that's
the first one is the proposed code amendments. I can go ahead and jump to the next slide and just talk about it
Let's
and
do
then
it.
go back. Okay. So again, first is feedback on the proposed code amendment. So this would be staff coming back through with a formal text amendment and getting approval to change the code. So those are the standards that we're recommending you consider. And then the next one is the feedback on the sidewalk policy for city projects. So I've broken this into 2 slides, which are printed in front of you. But should the city build sidewalks per the dimensions in the code, obviously whatever we change that to be, if we change it, but note that this could result in fewer sidewalk projects due to the extra cost associated with right-of-way dedication, utility relocation, et cetera, right? Or should the city continue to build sidewalks that fit within the existing right-of-way and adjacent constraints, which would be maintaining our current practice? And then there's a question that follows that is there a minimum width that sidewalks can be built to, right? So say we make the code 6-foot sidewalks, but we allow us to reduce down to 5 and not to 4, right? And so maybe On the Brockett project, there's a little bit more right-of-way acquisition to make sure it's all 5, but it doesn't have to be fully 6. So this is what I'm calling my buffet. You can pick and choose what you want or what you think makes the most sense for the city and our development. And then also, should the city prioritize adding street trees in our projects? And if so, when and where? So is it all projects? Is it just trail projects? Is it just sidewalk projects? Is it only in certain parts of the city? Is it only where existing right-of-way allows it, right? There's some projects where Ken might be able to add 5 street trees. It wouldn't be along the entire route, but maybe he can add a few, which may be better than none, or maybe we just say, no, don't prioritize it. And then should the city prioritize adding pedestrian street lighting in our projects? If so, when and where? And the same question. So maybe we just do pedestrian street lighting on trails and we don't worry about them on sidewalk projects. Or we could just not add the light poles right now, but add conduit for future light pole installation when we're ready. And so those are kind of your buffet options of what might make sense, right? It doesn't have to be a full code or nothing. We can create our own set of standards and policies to work in.
Mayor, can I just add one thing to y'all's consideration? Ken mentioned the franchise agreement and the utility relocation. It's a subtle point, but one worth adding to this mix. The city's franchise agreement with Georgia Power does not require them, we would have to pay to move distribution facilities, poles for a sidewalk project unless we are making improvements and those to widen the road, create turn lanes, or add acceleration and deceleration lanes, and those sidewalk improvements are associated with it. And what it's very hard to do, and it's a very subtle point because people want to be very straightforward. They want to call it a trail project. They want to call it a sidewalk project. Whereas I'm over here begging you, widen the road 6 inches, guys. I mean, I'm not kidding, because Georgia Power changed the wording of the standard franchise agreement, and Tucker, being a newer city, got stuck with this language because it's what they handed out to everybody and what they handed out and insist on going forward. But it's a subtle point. And I hear y'all talk about complete streets and other things. If there are projects that you want to characterize as something different than a sidewalk or a trail, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes on a project. So I just want to throw that out there in the mix for y'all to know and think about and bake into the planning for some of these projects.
Perfect. And I know Council Member Nguyen also had some slides to show us where, you build around the poles and you go like this sometimes if you have to, right? If it's gonna.
Show those?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You want to go ahead and show those? Which you'll make Michelle Pencava very happy.
Yes, she did spur this up a little bit. So here we have a couple examples of other parts of the Metro Atlanta area and how they got around the constraints of moving and relocating utility poles. Top one you'll see is on Ponce. This is at the Chick-fil-A, kind of close by Ponce City Market. You see here, they just left the power poles and boxes along the side of the road. I think this is a really smart way of doing it. Part of it, you leave a lot of the visual clutter that's a key part of complete streets and design standards. Obviously, it's not the most appealing, but this was essentially the only way for this project to be completed within a reasonable budget on Ponce. As you know, you guys probably remember, there was a lot of different businesses along Ponce that didn't want to give up, their parking spaces, their right of way. And then down below, the text boxes blocking it right now, but it is a power pole dead in the middle of the sidewalk. Again, not ideal. It's not.
No,
Not
it can happen.
ideal.
It can
Right,
happen.
absolutely.
We have pictures.
We do have pictures and receipts. Yes. However, as a person that has spent most of his transportation days on my feet and biking, it is much more preferred for me to avoid this one power pole than, avoid someone walking a dog and having to get onto the road or, you know, someone like a mom walking with a double wide stroller. The beauty of some of these is, especially the bottom one, is we already kind of do it on Ponce, on ePonce. We did a sidewalk project. We paved around all of the mailboxes instead of buying more right away and relocating those. Again, you know, it wasn't ideal, it wasn't perfect, but I think it's a way for us to achieve our goal of building for the future of what we want the city to be like, and allow us to build bigger sidewalks. You know, it's kind of like the goat path analogy that you've mentioned a few times. There's a big difference between, you know, what is perfect in engineers kind of world, right? 6 feet sounds pretty big. You're only about, you know, 2.5 feet wide. You can fit 2 people, but then there's the real world constraints of, you know, people actually riding their bikes on the sidewalks. People have dogs. People would like to walk side by side. You have, you know, double wide strollers. So I think if we can work these into the policy where it becomes the preferred path instead of us having to relocate the utilities poles, we can hit that threshold of maximum coverage of, you know, large sidewalks. I really want to advocate for 8 feet sidewalk. I know, I think when I talked to Ken, that kind of puts us into the multimodal path territory. Again, you know, with the reality of people using bicycles on our sidewalk, this kind of gets around one of the issues I think we see a lot in some of the other cities where they talk about, you know, do we allow bikes on the multimodal trails and sidewalks? Because currently, you know, it's against the law for people to ride their bikes on sidewalks. Now, I'm sure the lieutenant back there probably hasn't pulled anyone over, but, you know, that is the reality that something like that could happen to someone. Yeah.
Is there another one?
I think you have one more.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So this one is a example of Avondale Estates. This is called a continuous sidewalk or path. This is, again, part of complete street standards for a lot of places. I pulled this from Avondale Estates. They just redid their entire downtown, as you see here. So the idea is to, instead of going down and then back up for any kind of driveways and roads, this signals to driver that pedestrians and bikes are the priority over vehicle traffic. And, you know, I think if you can go back to like Coolidge and Hugh Howell pictures, our code already kind of almost hits it. It's just like a minor change in our code that would be required if we wanted to make this our new standard for sidewalks and path or crossing driveways and streets.
This one?
No. Apologize. Yeah, you can see here that driveway down there, it's continuously leveled. On the Hugh Howell here, you can also see it. It's continuously paved and leveled. Again, this is just a minor tweak to our code, and then we would have to designate what road types and speeds and streets that it could traverse over.
Can I follow up on that one? I'm sorry, if you go back to the other. His pictures. So yeah, basically what you're talking about, that one is kind of a GDOT standard. And if you go down one, this is one that we did on Hugh Howell Road. So you see there, we cheated a little bit. We did the driveway apron, and then you see there, we kind of narrowed that sidewalk from 10 feet, or the trail from 10 feet to probably about 6 feet. And the reason we did that is you see behind that, that driveway is so steep. And going out just a couple more feet would have, you know, you'd probably have to take that slope all the way down toward the house to get that to level out. So Yeah, we do want to go to the GDOT standard, but in some cases we do cheat a little bit due to topography. Then the one below that, I think, is the sidewalk we did on Coolidge Road, something similar there. You have the driveway apron, but you have the elevation, basically. You're not going down, like you say, into the dustpan, they call it. You remain on a flat surface, so, yep.
All right, so let's go to your first question, or do you want to work backwards? You want to work on lighting and trees first? I will in a minute.
Okay.
I'll get you in a minute. I want to keep this focused on your question.
That's whatever y'all think is, if you want to work backwards or code first
That
or
might be
city
easier.
first.
Okay,
Yeah, what
let's-
do you want the
let's
city?
Start with code first.
Code, okay.
So your first question.
So I think everyone would agree, we codify the standards in the trail master plan, which is the 15-foot streetscape, 5-foot landscape strip, and a 10-foot paved trail.
Well,
We-
let's
No?
look. Everybody agree with that, or who doesn't agree? All right, so I want to hear, all right, Councilwoman Weaver, and then Councilman Nguyen, and then I'll get,
So this is, again, like, okay, I'm thinking big picture, and
Okay.
that's more how I think. I have a hard time starting in the details. So, to what Councilmember Nguyen was sharing in some of this discussion, I think that we should have what we consider our gold standard of the code, which should be based on what the trail is. I am concerned about letting the perfect be the enemy of the good and us not building anything because we can't do all of it, and not giving ourselves or others, because I know we're still in this could apply to everybody or it could apply to whoever. I feel, and I agree with Councilmember Nguyen, that to me, 8 feet is like a good minimum with some way of having an exception, again, to the working around the poles. But if there is any way for us to have almost like a hierarchy, but that also goes back to, I'm going to reference the Vision Zero policy again. And I also want to add, I think what our city attorney brought up is really, really relevant in terms of we need a complete streets policy. And it's why we put trails and transportation together in a plan so we could have more options, because it's really frustrating to be like, this is what we want to have. It costs too much money, so we can't do it at all. And so when I'm looking at this, I'm like, going back to Vision Zero policy, what's the purpose of a 5-foot landscape strip? In general, it's safety. Like, you put a barrier and a buffer between people who are not in cars and the cars. So if there is a way for us to say there needs to be some kind of buffer, but it doesn't have to be grass that gets overgrown. It doesn't necessarily have to be 5 feet. Like, the first priority is what's the buffer between the people on the trail. So if I'm prioritizing, I would like to prioritize the 10-foot paved trail and figure out what we can do for the buffer when we're talking about acquisition. But we also need to think about utilization and form versus function. So we could build a lot of really nice looking trails that, as you pointed out, well, if we don't put any shade, it doesn't have to be trees, could be other kind of shade, who's going to use them? So to me, it's like, how can we think about, and this kind of folds down into, again, the other areas of our community, which is what we want to see for development. Again, what is the economic development return on investment for these things, as opposed to what are we hoping for in residential areas, so we don't turn into a glorified HOA, which we already get accused of, right? But like, where are the places where we're achieving what our like ultimate goal is, not just what it looks like. So and again, I'm from Texas, and if you don't have trees, people don't walk. And so like, and I think it's true here too. And so if there's any kind of mix that we can, again, be like, this is what best case scenario we want. This is the absolute minimum we must have. And what's the version in the middle that there's some kind of rubric or criteria? So it's like, maybe you can't do all of them, but if you can figure out a way to do a street tree, maybe we can have that buffer be a little bit tinier because there's some like flexibility there. So that's why I'm shaking my head, is I think we need the flexibility, and I don't want to trap ourselves or others into not building in our community because it's too costly to be able to do it.
Or keep us from building it too, right? Okay.
But you like the 10-foot paved trail and the 5-foot is just creating more flexibility.
I would say, yeah, the like 10-foot, but I would like to be able to be 8 feet.
Well, that's for
But-
the trail. I think we were saying 8 feet for the second one. So trail would remain 10. That's what's in
Okay.
the trails master plan.
Mhm.
But all other sidewalks, we're recommending 6 or 5. You all are saying 8. That was where you would have
I'm
8.
saying that there are places where, again, if we can give ourselves the flexibility, because that 2 extra feet is going to make it cost prohibitive, 8 feet is still a minimum that, like, again, qualifies as multimodal and so can qualify as a trail.
All right, I'm taking notes.
Just quick question. So in the slide that you shared with the Trails and Transportation Master Plan, actually in the tiny little picture, it says 12 to 14 is the recommended, and then 10 was the minimum. So are you saying we should just go with a flat 10?
That's where we started. That's what we've been building. That's where developers have built. So our thought process was consistency. You know, it's if you're a developer, it's hard to be like, well, we really want 14, but we can go to 12. You know, it just creates some complexity. And I mean, if you're redeveloping, you could put a 14, but if it's tying into a 10, does that make sense?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same realm as Councilmember Weaver. You know, the landscaping strip is not as important to me as the functionality of the actual width of the sidewalk or trail. You know, I think I was in the same boat with the shade. You know, I think I've advocated a lot for it in the past until recently. I just went down to Hilton Head, funny enough, and I noticed that along the highway that they have, there's you know a 10-foot multimodal path, and there's no shade, but there was just like heavily traffic. So I can go either way on the shading part. I think the more important part for me is having some kind of small buffer or visual clutter, even if that is that kind of, I don't know, dead looking grass plant. That's
Like
about
ground cover,
knee
it's
height.
grass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my train of thought in terms of our landscaping for that.
So that would be 8 feet for city projects and 8 feet for developer projects, minimum. Is that, I know these are kind
Saying
of
that's
leading.
possible.
Yeah, yeah.
We're still
Again,
going back to where
all about
possible.
flexibility, and in areas like North Lake downtown, and then minimum of the 8.
Just to add, I think the other thing that we're still like sort of talking about is what's required versus what we can incentivize. Like that would be like the next kind of conversation that I think would be good, which is what will commercial developers or other property owners, again, what do they have to do? But where can we also be like, and if you do this, what are the, like that we need to talk about across the board with economic development? But to me, this is one of those that, you know, factors in, it's also cost to them. So if you're talking about all along the trail network, developers have to put in the best in class version. That means that those homes, if they're building homes, are not going to be affordable for anybody. They're going to be market rate or luxury because that's the only way that they will be able to recoup their costs. So those kinds of decisions that we make affect a lot of other things down the line.
That's a good point. Just like impact fees, right? They get pushed down. Have we had pushback from developers on meeting these standards?
Typically the most places we get pushback is when it's a sidewalk to nowhere. So even if you're just doing an infill construction project of a single house, you have to put a sidewalk in the middle of your neighborhood that may have no sidewalks. We do allow people to pay into the sidewalk bank in place of that if they don't want to build a sidewalk to nowhere. But typically developers have not complained about, you know, trail standards or anything like that.
Except North Lake, I think, isn't it like very onerous in North Lake?
Yeah, and North Lake is harder. a lot of the ones that were already put in are smaller than maybe the code says. So for example, on La Vista Road, it's supposed to be a 15-foot sidewalk, but it's really more like a 10 that's out there. So I mean, I think a 15-foot sidewalk is pretty challenging to do because, you know, that developer is going to lose right away in order to put in a 10 or an 8-foot sidewalk. That could impact their setbacks, their buildable area, their lot coverage, their tree density. So it does trickle down.
And Ken, you brought up a good point too, showing Hugh Howell with parking, right? Taking away their parking in the front. So here's some agreement that I'm hearing, and give me thumbs up, thumbs down, or another kind of finger. All right. So the first one is we want to make sure we have the walkability. So we want to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves or others in providing sidewalks. So that's important. So I've heard flexibility. So where we have to do it, not it's an excuse all the time, but where we need it, we truly have some kind of rubric or something that offsets that gold standard. Trails, sounds like 10 feet is what we've been doing. Is that still okay? Okay. So that's good, right? So see, look at them taking notes. Okay. Allowing that flexibility. So then I also heard like the grass strip maybe doesn't necessarily have to be grass. It's something there. So I heard it is important visually, but it could be something else that looks different. I know in some places, and I've seen it, I think we inherited it from North Lake Community Line. Sometimes there's like a little bit of brick or something, but it ends up cracking and looking like crap like a few years later too. So like, what does that look like? What could be long-term sustainable? Is it stamping? Whatever. So, but it's not a deal breaker. That's what I heard from some folks. It's not a deal breaker.
I think
If
the
we
biggest
can't
thing
have it.
about the landscape strip is the separation from the travel lane, because people just don't feel safe when people are whizzing by at 50 miles an hour, walking right next to the curb. So it gives you a little more comfort level.
Okay. And then let's go to 8 feet. I've heard from two folks, 8 feet would be a gold standard. Is that what I'm hearing for sidewalks where possible? Again, a little flexibility, because if we can only do 6 in some place and it's a place that we know that people are walking because they have to, we want to make sure we're still getting that done. Okay, so yes.
I'm not sure about that. I get it. I do. But I also really hear the part about continuity. So I think that the balance, and I agree with everything, most everything that's been said. I think that there needs to be a little bit of flexibility, but I do, the piece about we're going from, I think it should be a little more rare to like, I'd like to see us either go to 5 feet sidewalks or whatever we go to, there's a continuity to it as we're building out. Except for in rare occasions when we must make accommodations. I think we need some flexibility for that. I feel like if we start 8 feet, we've been building all these sidewalks, and then we're starting to look at 8 feet. That concerns me a little bit, just because of the continuity piece. And then also, I also look at, will that be, so like if we're talking about Lawrenceville Highway, for example, which we've had a lot of conversations about expanding the sidewalk or making it making a bike lane separated from the traffic along there. In my heart, I want to do that, but I also am concerned again about, working with GDOT and our other utility companies. And I do think that we want to strike a balance between finding a space where we can get these projects done, because we're a very ambitious council, right? We got a lot of things we want to get done, very ambitious staff, and striking that balance between having continuity, being able to be a little bit flexible when necessary for the unusual sections that, we don't want the sidewalk to stop. But I also don't want it to be so cost prohibitive that it can never get done. And I'm not sure that I can see 8 feet sidewalks along Lawrenceville Highway. And I'm just using
We've
that. as
already,
an
but we
example.
have a code already for Lawrenceville Highway and you are, that's already,
Well, but we're talking about changing it.
I know, but I'm just saying, what are we requiring right now on Lawrenceville?
6 feet
6
side.
feet.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, if we were to go to an 8-foot sidewalk on city projects, that would end up being even more cost prohibitive than following the current code.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean-
it would limit the number of projects you can do. But yeah, you're gonna have more right-of-way acquisition, and some people don't want to give up right-of-way for a wider sidewalk.
Eminent
But-
domain. I'm just-
Yeah, sure. I mean, those are things you have to consider.
It's fair market value. It's not taking. Right now, we've got 4 new projects on Lawrenceville Highway, 4, 3, that are building sidewalk. And so they're building 6-foot sidewalk. And some of them have finished their sidewalk because they're finished their project. Okay. Okay. We can also, so I'm going to go to Councilwoman Troche because she wants to talk, and then we'll go to shade and other things, lighting.
Yeah, I think just what we're saying is it sounds like we want to maximize the usable paved space. Like, so we've talked about making the landscape strips or what was it called? The planted landscape strip furnishing zone. I think those are more easily sacrificed with modifications like visual, things in a smaller landscape strip. And we just want to maximize the usable space as much as possible because I don't think I had thought about the expansion of sidewalks from 6 to 8 feet as allowing other types of transportation, multimodal, scooters and bikes, which I think is so important because we actually do have roads that are we're not going to be able to modify them within a reasonable amount of time to accommodate a bike lane. We're not going to have a bike lane on Lawrenceville Highway, for example. But what if we had a really wide, I know it's expensive and a pain in the butt, but it's not as expensive and as a pain in the butt as putting it in the road. So I think we just want to maximize the usable paved space within reason and then make adjustments where it makes sense.
Yeah, because up here, you're saying we've got a sidewalk, but we've also got a streetscape. So you're saying a minimum 12-foot streetscape, 2-foot landscape, the curb, 6-foot sidewalk, 4-foot planet landscape strip. What if you take 2 feet from that planet landscape strip and pour it into concrete? Right? Yeah, but maintenance, that planet strip, sometimes it's
But is that
us.
city or is that developer? Right? Because if you take it to 2, you don't have street trees or decorative street lighting.
Well, in some places we don't, we wouldn't.
Yeah,
need it.
and that's a larger conversation. And I didn't go there tonight, but where exactly do we want pedestrian street lighting, right? Like, do you want it inside a neighborhood off of a residential street, or is it mostly the major thoroughfares? And so maybe we come up with a plan of, this is where 8-foot sidewalks would go, and this is where 5 or 6 would go. I mean, I don't, if it's
Again, it goes to
certain
who's
roads.
maintaining that 4 feet of planet landscape strip and furniture zoning. Who's paying for that? Who's maintaining it, right? I don't want to say it's not a double standard, but it's a different standard.
Well, I don't know that all of that 4 feet has to be within a right of way, does it?
We are typically flexible with that. Some of the extra landscape can be on private as long as the full sidewalk is in the right of way. But so that would be a, minimum 10 feet of potential dedication. But if we're making it a complete street and making it a road project, we have the extra help with Georgia Power and the utility companies, but then the extra costs for the road project. So it sounds like maybe no more necessarily true sidewalk projects, more complete street road projects.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So that's actually what I was gonna say is this is where approaching this instead of from like the individual code around the sidewalks versus a complete street policy that says for specific road designations, there are distinct ways of looking at it. So if I'm talking about an 8-foot sidewalk that allows multimodal transportation, it only has to be on one side of the street. It doesn't have to be on both sides of the street, right? You like, and even a complete streets policy does not mean everything has to match. It's more saying like, in this type of thing, and this is what we're trying to achieve, this is what our whole streetscape looks like. And so if we are widening roads for an intersection improvement, let's widen them enough to be able to get like what our gold standard is. So I would just say, like, and again, because it's also in the transportation plan, they have a recommended policy. I think it would be easier for all of us because we're all kind of like, what if, when we're picturing our different intersections. And that's kind of, again, the whole point of the complete street, which is to say, where is it appropriate for it to be a street tree versus just a visual element to slow people down versus like, and it focuses on all of the different users of the road. So I would just, like, based on our feedback and thinking through, how can we take a little, because I think that also then still fits within our zoning designations and district designations, right? That there are reasons that those codes are different because we want them to have a different look and a different feel.
Well, and it's classification of the street too, right? So is it a connector street? It's not going to happen on Castle Ridge Drive, but it could happen on Henderson, or it could happen, you know, Rocket, Midvale, those kinds of places, Hugh Howell, right?
Yeah, and I'll say we initially started this conversation in January of 2025 when we came and presented about multiple text amendments we were going to address. One of them was the density and height and streetscape, and then we did the transportation trail master plan, and we were waiting for that to be done to come back. So, you know, we can definitely pause on any next steps and then look at the complete streets and then come back and look at the code changes. But this at least is a great conversation and input for what to consider as we move forward.
Everybody feel good about that?
Sorry.
Councilman
Can we
Wynn?
clarify on what we're agreeing on now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've given some direction, right? What's rising to the top of being more important. If not, let me know. But, you know, again, it was that flexibility to make sure we want to build sidewalks. We want to connect folks. So we don't want to be hamstrung into something that would limit our ability to connect folks. Some things are more important than others, right? We've not touched upon lighting yet, but we would say lighting would probably be in those more commercial, you know, more walkability type areas, those connector type streets. Sometimes there's street trees, sometimes there's not. Maybe it's a street tree that's separating you from the road, but we're looking at it more as part of the transportation plan versus the separate, it's sidewalk and zoning, whereas it's sidewalk as transportation and trails. I see heads nodding. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that feedback and connect it more to the transportation plan with roads, correct? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of our sidewalk projects fall into those classifications you've been talking about. So, I mean, you're not doing sidewalk projects inside residential neighborhoods. So Brockett, Montreal, Old Norcross, those are Henderson, those are all
Also
going to
the
be
collector streets. Yeah.
collector streets, which then would require the 8-foot, which then creates that larger complete street project. Is there a minimum width that you would be comfortable city sidewalks being? Is it 5? Is it 4? Is it 6?
Anybody throw out a number?
Definitely not 4. I mean,
Well,
unless you absolutely have to, but I think, again, it comes back to, I want to say you guys both presented very well because it's not a one size fits all. There's complexities here. But I do like the idea of simplifying the code as best we can and making it a little bit more simpler. But again, these different types of streets have different purposes and will have different purposes along with the complete street policy, hopefully that will get done, you know, in the near future and stuff like that. And we'll will help guide us. I think one of the things I also want to just quickly bring up is that when I read Dunwoody's complete street policy, one of the things they said in their introductory was that it was like, and I don't remember exactly the wording because it's been maybe almost a year since I read it now, but it talked about, the complete street is not like a one size fits all. Like it has to kind of meet the parameters and the infrastructure and all those things that are there. So I liked that because, it leaves a little bit of flexibility, but it also highlighted what I saw that highlighted like some really good key areas where it made great sense to do that. So I like that. I understand that, you both are dealing with, different issues at the same time. We need to try to bring those together and hopefully find some sort of comprehensive way to build these things out with continuity. Again, I can't, the visual of going like, okay, we've built all these 6 feet wide sidewalks now, and now we're going to go to 8 or even down to 6 or whatever. Down to 5 or something like that is hard for me, but I think, being flexible, and I appreciate what everyone else up here says, because it's not an easy direction. There's not a one size fits all, apparently.
Well, and we've got that flexibility now. I think you're looking for a little bit more structure of minimums, maximums, like that kind of thing. But
Yeah, I
still
mean,
have
technically anything is
flexibility.
possible with money and
Yeah.
legal processes and all that kind of thing. But, if 4 is too small, we need to know, right? If our standard should always be nothing less than 5, we need to know that.
You were going to say something on that, and then I'll.
5.
Give me a 5. All right, Councilwoman Schroeder.
I was gonna say 4 because I know so many sidewalks are so small. So that's, for me, the hardest part of the decision is that we have so many sidewalks on the connector streets that are very small.
Mhm.
So if there's a way to make it, have a plan in place for continuity, but strive for what we all agree to, I think is where I get a little nervous.
Well, we have a lot of
So-
older, you bring up a good point. We have a lot of older infrastructure, but that can't impede us from moving forward because one day those sidewalks will have to be replaced, right? You know what I mean? So it might look funky, but you're adding more walkability with that larger sidewalk moving forward. And one day, like I said, that piece will have to be replaced and then it meets the new standard. It's kind of, like when your house, like your refrigerator breaks and you're like, do I do the whole kitchen? Can I afford that? Or do I just buy a new refrigerator and Eric's looking at me saying, no, you can't afford that, Ann. And so,
Yeah, poor Eric during this whole
I
conversation.
know he's about to have I told him, I was like, do you want to go first so you don't have to do your report? He's like, no, I have to listen to what everybody is saying.
Okay, so I'll go with 5.
Okay, 5. But I get.
I'm also, again, I would like to see it by type of road. Because there are places where I'd probably be fine with 5 and places that I would not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do want to add on the 4-foot piece. So the bare minimum requirement for ADA is 36 inches, and that is the bare minimum, which is 3 feet. And so, and that's not
Tiny.
best practice. And so since we have a strategy that is being working on public, city facilities and what we're hearing from the folks from that, I would love to hear what that survey and what that plan also incorporates when we talk about like accessibility.
Yeah,
because
reached out to KCI about it.
The other thing I would add is like, this doesn't even address ramps. And we got some ramps that are basically puddles that don't help people, and we have some places that damage people's very expensive, hard to get wheelchairs. So I would just say when we're talking about non-vehicular transportation and sidewalks and trails, we need to be thinking about that side of it too. And I would also add, if we're updating the code, one of the pieces of feedback that we've gotten so far is on signage height and distance from, signage around people who are visually impaired, et cetera. So again, going to the complete street. When it's complete street, it's not just what's flat, it's what's up. And so how we think about those things, I think is really important.
That's important. All right, you're good? I know. You're like, God,
No,
it's even
That was good
worse.
input. Yep.
Well, just
Now.
so do we want to prioritize anything specifically with trail projects? Because I know Ken's working on a lot of Hugh Howell Trail. Is that the 10 with no street trees and no pedestrian street lighting? Or do we add those elements where we can for the trail projects?
I'm glad you brought that up. I think that having tree, and I think this was mentioned maybe by Councilmember Weaver. I do think at least having trees along the trail is, I mean, necessary and important. The lighting, you know, I could go either way. I'd love to hear what other council members are thinking about that, but certainly in certain areas, I think that lighting would be important, and especially as we get closer to the downtown village area, maybe. Certainly I would love to have lighting along Hugh Howell Trail, but I think that having trees and shade in those areas are probably more important. And then as we build out trails in other areas, maybe we're thinking about either of those, and either, you know, as far as like North Lake Trail, what does that look like? And we can become more unified. I tell you what, I do wonder about. I think about, like, we just, you know, reopened John Homestead, and that is a natural trail. So, you know, I'm just trying to compare, like, you know, is it the paved trails we want to make sure we have lighting on?
Yeah,
That sort of thing?
This is the trail network and the trail master plan. This would
Okay.
apply to trails in Henderson Park.
Okay, so it wouldn't be within the park. Okay,
No, like,
yeah.
but South Fork, Tucker North Lake, that's where
Yeah.
this would apply.
yeah.
And just to clarify, when we're talking about street trees, we're not talking about between the sidewalk and the curb. 'Cause Ted will
Yeah.
tell you that's a no-no.
Too close.
That's an impediment. So we're talking about on the
On the
back
other
side.
side. Yeah, I get that. But I do think that, again, it is important to have, and it's a way for us to expand our tree canopy, which is important to our entire community. If we have, you know, if we just start putting trees in place where we can, where it makes sense and where it's safe for the community, obviously.
In some places, we're not going to need it. If you're along the creek, right? Like, that's already got the natural elements there. So again, I think it's
Yeah.
depending
those
on the
major
stretch.
thoroughfares, North Lake
but the
Parkway,
major
Hugh Howell.
thoroughfares. Yeah.
All right, thank
Roger-
you.
Roger-
Sorry for
Wait,
the
Roger doesn't speak a lot. so
20 questions.
Kate.
5. Never.
Bye. Got it.
Can you quantify a price per foot or something of conduit if that middle option were taken?
Conduit for lighting,
Mhm.
I can get that number for you. The time to do it would be when you're constructing the
Right.
sidewalk, sure.
And that may be a middle ground, because I totally agree with Councilmember Reese that the canopy and shade elements of trees would be more advisable than lighting, except if it came down to a safety option. So that middle ground of putting in the conduit in certain areas might be something to know.
That's right. In some areas, we'll have lighting already where you're putting the trail. It won't be decorative.
Possibility of doing like solar, kind of like our RFB and stuff.
Solar lighting?
Yeah.
It's not in the city standard guidebook. We can add it.
How much illumination that provides, but
And then you're going to plant
Depends
the
if you have
tree
the
that's
street
gonna
tree, it
block
won't work.
the-
See, it's a buffet. Pick what you want.
It's solar.
Okay. Thank you. This has been helpful. Sorry for the
No,
20
no, this is-
questions
no,
and
because this is
million
good because- yeah,
scenarios.
but this is how we have to have those conversations
Yep.
because we can't have those conversations elsewhere but here.
Okay,
right?
thank you.
So, thanks, Shaw. Okay, we got finance director. H1. He's gonna tell us we can't do any of it.
You know, I just realized that I gave you the PDF and not the actual presentation, but we'll make it work. I'll use this. It's fine. Be all right. It's the same thing as every time. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're here to present the June 2026 financial report, which is the final month of fiscal year 26. Obviously, we didn't have a July meeting, so this gets pushed to August. I will note that these numbers, so we're obviously 100% way through fiscal year 26. But we do still have the audit to be finished, so there will be adjustments once the audit is complete. We also have until anything received by Monday next week can be backdated in the system. So some expenses for invoices, some of our vendors are very slow at turning in invoices. So these numbers can change from those as well. So this, and I apologize. This is kind of, we've kind of maintained that revenue. We've been pretty stable. As you can see, most of our revenue, if you look through the memo, we're right around 97%, pretty much across the board on all of our revenue projections. And that included SPLOST as well, stormwater also. I didn't really label that, but that's pretty much in line with what the property tax collection was as well. So in the general fund, we did collect 97% of our budgeted number. One thing I'm really proud of our staff is our expenditures was only 82% of our budget. Obviously, we did put a lot of pressure, Derek and I, on people not to spend excessively on things we did not need, just being prepared for anything that could happen. So our staff did a great job of that. From there, the capital fund, obviously this is like a carry forward. Everything rolls forward to the next year. These numbers will, much of it will show up in next year's budget because we carry forward. Capital projects take forever. This is kind of comparing you'll just kind of notice same as last year as this year. Like we did not spend as much this year, but we have a lot of projects in works that will carry forward over the next year. So SPLOST, it's kind of hard with SPLOST. If you look at the overall SPLOST, you're like, I can't remember what the total like revenue was. It was like 50%. That's obviously a lot of grant money is in our SPLOST, but for the actual tax collection, it was at 96.7% is what we collected, which we actually gained some ground because probably 4 months ago, we were not on pace to get anywhere near 100%. So spending did, well, maybe the FIFA World Cup might have had a little bit more help than what was said. So, and stormwater is very stable fund. It is our one enterprise fund that it is a business fund. We want to always be improving that infrastructure, and we are very stable in that fund. Overall, we do have the city's website where you can look at our financials. The financial transparency page is up. I'm trying to get the 27 to show up on it. I'm working with ClearGov. 26 is up to date at this moment, and we'll continue to update it when those journal entries and invoices come in for fiscal year 26, and then 27 should start appearing here shortly. I just got to work on the link for that. And then the overall collection for the whole fiscal year at this moment is 53.7 million. And expenditures are 52.8 million. And
Very
then
good. Questions for Aaron?
I don't have my questions page anymore. So,
All right.
all right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for your hard work on that. All right, John, H2.
Yep, we have the solutions. Next calendar year, we have an amendment to our budget per norm at this time of year. And we've had an excellent outreach with our Henderson Park Master Plan. Looking forward to getting those recommendations from the Community Development Department, Courtney. We've got just Rosenfeld's already moving forward with the construction, but we also have the lighting award. We continue to address sanitation in the downtown. Things are working well with our initial compactor at Tuckertown Green for our businesses that are in the Local 7 building. And then we're going to, I believe that Mike has already had a meeting with the Public Facility Authority. And we'll be coming forward on the St. Andrew's Church parking lot agreement, akin to our other parking agreement. And then we've got some ordinances in terms of the extension of the SLUP for the project up on North Lake Parkway. And then second read on the animal ordinance, and also some changes to our land development. And we're recognizing our human resources professionals on the 26th. And we'll also be getting an update on the American Disabilities Act strategy.
All right, thank you. And I know that we discussed maybe in the future too, just some few little brief updates on projects, where they stand, like Lake Erin Dam and those kinds of things, larger projects. So thank you. Very good. All right, questions for John? Yes.
I was just curious about the Lake Erin Dam construction project at Henderson Park. Several people are asking about timing. I think people are thinking the construction has gone a long time, and I know that there's still a lot of complications there. But getting the word out, or responding to the community about what's next, what's happening with that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a swag at it, and then I'll let Ken correct me. But the project is moving forward, which we're very pleased about. Big Category 1 dam and having been fixed. It has sort of run into two challenges, which is one, the soil that you've already had to do an extensive change order to address, and then the weather, because the intermittent rain that we've been receiving makes it so much harder to use the existing soil that's there. My understanding is we're moving forward out of that, but that is correct. The schedule, it hasn't met our original schedule, and obviously cost has been an issue too with it, but it is moving forward, and looking forward to getting it done. Ken, what did I miss?
No, that was a good summary. Yeah, so the unsuitable soil. So I showed you a slide that day of all the muck once we released the water from the dam, and just unworkable. All that stuff had to be hauled off. And then as we got into the dam itself, that was built in the 1950s, I think, it was not good soil. I won't call it unsuitable, but it required the contractor to really work it. It had a lot of clay in it. It just wouldn't dry out. And you get a half inch of rain and it sets you back for a week, because it's just a muddy mess. So the contractor has to continually work it, dry it out, get the compaction, and it's just the weather and the soil conditions has really set us back. But the good news is we're almost completed with that soil. The soil remaining will be soil that is brought in that's in much better condition, be able to work with it a lot better. So we're going to see an accelerated schedule here in the next few weeks, weather permitting.
All right. Great. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, John. We do not have executive session, so we're going to move on to mayor and council comments. I'm going to start down here. No, nada. Good. Thumbs up. Okay. No.
Just briefly, a week ago, we opened John Tumstead Park, and I want to make a special thank you to Spencer and Craig and John for organizing with me and mayor and council the kind of rah-rah ribbon cutting. Mayor did a wonderful job of engaging all the stakeholders. I think we had about 60 people there, and everyone has a copy of the map of the park. It is a passive nature park with two lakes, and I understand that we will be stocking the lakes with fish next month, so that's also very exciting. So I just wanted to make a quick announcement and thank everybody for participating.
All right. Councilman Weaver.
I just mostly wanted to say, I mean, I know they're not here anymore, but I do appreciate the district coming and giving their presentation, and being willing to let us ask them difficult questions. Got some insights and answers. And so mostly I really am very proud of our Tucker schools, and I was personally very gratified to see that the growth is happening. And I just, in case people miss that, Tucker is the only cluster he said it. I think he didn't necessarily want to. That is growing, and across all grade, like across elementary, middle, and high school. And I think that's really important because that is definitely a different trend than we have necessarily seen in the past. And I think a lot of it's because so many people in Tucker love our community. They want their kids to be here. They like the fact that their kids can go from school to, so I know you said you saw the ones going to the arcade. Lots of kids have been going to the town green as well. Lots of kids' parents have been picking them up at the town green so they don't have to get stuck in middle school traffic. But it's people using our community and feeling connected to that. And so I just wanted to say I really appreciated hearing that. And maybe there's something we can do to highlight the fact that our education, our schools in Tucker are exceptional in a particular way, and people are investing in Tucker in a lot of different ways.
Very important. Also want to thank Councilwoman Schroeder for all of her work that went into the Johns Homestead grand reopening. That was very good. Great job. I know the community, which is probably why the community can't wait for Henderson to open, right? There's that pent up energy. They saw that beautiful project completed, Craig, with your team. All right. So thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? I see hands are already up. All those in favor? All right. We're adjourned. Thank you.